Make sure we get everything plugged in. So all right. Okay. Trying to get all this stuff going. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully you're doing well. All right. I think we're good to go. Already made the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Amen. Welcome, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice to the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Thanks for tuning in today, and we're going to talk about history repeats. Once again, we give all praise and honor to the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Alma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not AMD, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And her business is making sure that the health of the diaspora is her business. So thank you for being able to support her. Once again, you can find her at Bloom and Flourish, not AND, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. To the moderators, administrative staff, to those who are watching, if it's your first time, if it's one time of many, etc., we thank you. We appreciate your time. Thanks for being on with us. Once again, I'm coming off really bright and everything. I don't know what's up with that as of late, but it's all gravy. Thanks for being on. We appreciate you. And thanks for tuning in. Wanted to take some time out to talk about history repeats. And yep, we already got some people coming on. Y'all act like the USA was the only country that had slavery. Slavery comes from the word Slavic people. You're exactly right. Don't disagree with you at all. And not here to say that every white person is evil. Not trying to say the USA is the only people that were involved in the slave trade. Not trying to say that somebody of African descent didn't try to have slaves and all those things or whatever. So thank you for going ahead and making sure that you are in agreement with things that I stand on. So your whole thing is to try and act like everything that I'm saying is bad and blah, blah, this and that or whatever. And I'm living in the past and you have no clue what's going to come out of my mouth. So it seems like you have the issue of living in the past to where you see me, you see a picture, you think that I'm talking about white people destroy black people and that's it. And since that's your past mindset, that's what you bring. But if you like to listen long enough to be able to get some of this, you can feel more than free to, right? But we have to admit that this is real, right? And police officers, who, by the way, make slaves out of white people as well nowadays, if they're doing the same thing they did back that they had back then, slave patrol, and they're doing the same thing now as police officers, we probably want to admit that certain things are still going on, correct? So we're going to deal with a lot of issues with that. I know that people are going to be so frustrated and this and that, but maybe you might be willing to listen long enough to see that what they did to one people, they'll do to another. And if you won't protect one, then you won't protect yourself. And that's really what we're going to try to get to. But grand rising, everybody. Shalom, peace. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Nai Kofi. Shalom, Kwam Yashler. Ni hao, namaste, akwa aba itase, osayu, ohayo, habari, jambo, mimini kofi, ninafraka kutana nuwebe. Hello, everybody. Greetings. Welcome to you. Hello, how you doing, TJ? How you doing? Once again, how you doing, babe? I'm on, as always. Thank you so much. Sister Deborah, Tone Robin, or One Tone Robin, Eli Leon, I'm not sure if I'm still saying that right or not. Nay, Minister Tamara, Aphrodisiac, Cookie, Jolene, Mike, Amadi, Tree by Living Water, Alton. How you guys doing? Thanks for the love. Erica, I believe it was. Hello, Miles Taylor. How you doing? And we appreciate everybody for coming on up. I missed some names. I apologize. Uh-oh. I don't know. James, Tommy Boy, TGI. Just skipping around on me. I apologize. Amen. Yeah. So if you're willing to listen, we were talking about that last night. Listen to the voice. Listen to the voice. You know, and a lot of people don't want to just listen. Listen to the voice. Actually, see if there's something that's there. How you doing, Charles? Um, Akwaba or Habari, Jambo. Greetings. Um, and a lot of people just don't want to listen long enough to see what to listen to the conversation, to see what's actually going on. If you would, people see me dressed a certain way, people might see a picture or two fly up on a screen, and the automatic thing to do is to be like, oh, here it is. You hate people. No, like matter of fact, the whole thing that's even causing people's mind to go there is something I didn't create, because I didn't create the lost cause. How you doing, Sister Tracy? I didn't create the lost cause. I didn't create doctrine of discovery. I didn't create manifest destiny. I didn't create Darwinism. I didn't create eugenics. But people see certain things, and once again, you know, we have to have honest conversation, right? Like, the only reason I can become greater than the generation before me is not to just say that whatever the generation before me did is perfect. The only reason I can become greater is by saying that, hey, there are certain things that they did that I should repeat. There's certain things the generation before me did that I should not repeat, right? And locking people up for whatever reason, especially because of the color of their skin, we should think about those things as to why are people being locked up. Were people locked up for perverted and wrong reasons back then? Sure. Were people being locked up are people being locked up for wrong reasons, perverted reasons today? Sure. And to say that those things don't matter is one of the reasons why we're having evil continue to exist in many different forms today. Um, And so we should talk about those things. Would you say Ecclesiastes 1:9? What is that? Is there anything whereof it may be said, see this? Yeah, see, this is new. It hath been already of old time, which was before us. That's a great scripture, right? We're talking about history repeats today. That's the focus for today, is that history repeats. And it's 8:16, babe, if you see that, right? Thanks for being part of the community. I'm sorry, is it Sassis? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but thanks for being part of the community. You said, are most black people in America actually are in fact Native American? Did African slave trade? Yeah, African slave trade happened, but are there natives here that were of color that were already being enslaved? Of course, like it's more than just that, right? But it's not, one has to cancel out the other, But I'm trying to talk about today. History repeats. How you doing, Keith? History repeats, and we keep going through the same stuff. People keep saying, why are you talking about the same thing? Why are y'all always bringing this up? Because I'm trying to show you history repeats. How you doing, Brother Vincent? Right? History repeats. This ain't nothing new. You said it's a false correlation. What's a false correlation? That history repeats? Like, hello to you, first of all. Feel free. Feel free to, this is a safe space as long as you treat each other as human beings. Like, this is a safe space. And once again, we're talking about, if you can get past what I'm talking about, see, because police officers, as much as we want to act like all they do is go after black people on both sides, right, of the argument, they go after white people too, right? And they're locking up white people too. And you're living things as a U.S. citizen rather than a non-citizen national, no matter what color you are, correct? Yeah, and the only way for it, to continue to repeat is that we act like we're not going to deal with it. Sure, if you want to say Ethiopia or Kush is a place where a lot of people came from and all that stuff, or say that Ethiopia is what they used to call Africa, sure. I'm trying to talk about history repeats. I keep spreading hate. How do I keep spreading hate? What words have I said that I hate you? I literally just said they lock white people up too. See what I'm saying? People aren't getting this. You said borough slave catchers went after white accomplices as well. Once again, history repeats. You just said what I said. You just what I said. And by the way, 13% commits 50% of the crime. That's not a real statistic at all. Actually, black people commit 0.6, or what is it? They go to court. 0.06% of us will actually go to court, and half of that will actually. And half of the time, that those people go to court, they will actually be said to be guilty, whether they're actually guilty or not. That's the statistic you want to hold on to. You're using a very supremacist type statistic to be able to support that. But you see, history repeats if we're not careful. Right? Yeah, and wisdom can be messed up to defensive minds. You said, no, the statistics are correct. No, because you're trying to say that because the statistic in and of itself, first of all, we don't even know for sure if 13% of the population of the United States of America is black, number one, right? It could be more, it could be less, number one. Number two, if we're going to go ahead and do that, you're trying to say that, let's say, so what, let's just make it easy, man, because it's more like 320 million, but let's make it easy. So 300 million people, so 1% of that would be 3 million people, right? So if we multiply that times 15, or let's make it 13, right? So that would be 39 million people. So what you're trying to say, out of 39 million people, men, women, and children, that, what is that? 17 million something of us commit crime, which is wrong. Or what you're trying to say is all the crime that's committed is committed by black people. That's not correct statistic. Once again, you're using a very supremacist mindset, right? You're using a very supremacist mindset, right? Only, once again, 0.6% of people who are black, right? Or 0.6% of Americans are black people who are going to be in prison, right? And only half of those people are going to be found guilty, and a bunch of them are going to be found guilty of things that they're not actually guilty of. Okay, so, and it's the same thing. There's a lot of white people that go to prison, right? And they're going to go to prison for things that they didn't do as well, right? You see that? Like, this is an issue where people are trying to make something that's messed up, and you're so busy looking at black and white. You see a black man who would dare speak on something that affects black people. You're not realizing that I also realize it affects white people too. White people, first of all, are not a real thing, right? There's no such color as white. White is not a color. It is the absence of color, which means that there's not even a such thing as a white people. So the only thing that we're dealing with is social constructs, where somebody's trying to get you to believe that the same reason they could lock people up back then who disagree with them is the same reason they can lock people up today who disagree with you, right? Slave patrolmen are doing the same thing they were doing back then. History repeats. Well, Josh, if you want to know what I'm trying to say, listen, because I haven't said anything that makes me say that I'm against anybody because of the color of their skin, right? And that's a great point somebody brought up, that the elites are always the people that are in charge. See, the slave patrolmen, just like the police officer today, they work for corporations. Yeah, your dad went to prison for a crime they didn't commit. Yeah, a lot of us have that story, right? And so you're so busy seeing this and seeing a black man who's wearing his hair, his culture, his tunic, his clothes, and the first thing people do is say, "Oh, I'm trying to hate white people." That's not the case at all, right? You said, so we should look at people regardless of the color of their skin. Sure, I honor people. Matter of fact, you can be a handsome man or a beautiful woman with white skin. You can be a handsome man or beautiful woman with black skin or brown skin or mahogany skin, or people try to say yellow skin as if that's a thing, or whatever. Red skin, red bone, ebony, whatever. Right? That's, see, you see this, you see the badges that aren't my badges, first of all, and you proclaim that I'm trying to proclaim the same thing that these people who lock you up are saying. You said there's no black people. Yeah, well, I'm the first person to tell you on paper, I don't mind being called black, because African people called themselves black for, millennia. However, on paper in Western society, yeah, legally, you should make sure that you're not a black person on paper, because black, colored, Negro, African American, etc., by law, they're considered not to be a real person. So you probably shouldn't put that on paper, which should tell you something about the system that's messed up. By the way, on paper, white is not really a person either. You said they didn't call themselves black? You're absolutely wrong. The term Negro, you think that it's a Spanish term. A lot of people who are into more science, things like that, we kind of started to shift things to try and like come out of the system. And I get it, but Negro is actually a term that was taught to the Spanish by people who were called Negro, which is one of the most ancient terms for West African people in the story of mankind, or what you want to call his story. Ethiopian means people that are blackened or darkened by the sun. There was a tribe called the Slippery Blacks. Cushitic people call themselves Cush. Cush actually can switch for black. Ham himself, even if you want to go biblically, Ham means hot, or it means somebody dark enough to be in the skin. Ham, not ham, like we say now. What about Kemet within itself? Chemistry, which is where the word chemistry comes from. Chemistry, chemi, literally means black. So chemistry, before it became chemistry, was literally the study of black. And when you break down the word chemi, it actually means black. What about human? Humus man. Humus means rich, dark, nutrient earth. Man means spirit, which means you cannot be a human being without being rich, dark, nutrient earth with a spirit inside. Now, on paper, though, lawfully in a lot of the Western world, you should make sure that you're not black on paper, because a black person on paper, copper colored person, or not copper color is actually considered to be a real person. A black, Negro, colored, African American, they're considered to be fake people on paper. Once again, I'm trying to talk about history repeats. So the color of race people was taught to the Spanish before the word for night, for the word night or sky. No, nobody said anything close to that. But negro or negro, or it actually was pronounced negro, or back, it was an ancient West African term. We forget that there were Carthaginians, and before Carthaginians there were others, but we forget there were Carthaginians, and then after that there were Moors. That both with the Carthaginians for thousands of years, the Moors for almost 1,000 years. Oh no, sorry, for about 700 to 800 years, were people who were teaching people in Spain, and actually had capitals and things in Spain, built 11 universities in Spain before all the stuff happened in 1491, where Queen Isabel and King Ferdinand came together, who were the grandchildren of the Crusaders, and used the Crusade as an excuse to be able to dispel black people from their land. Yeah, we were taught to hate what we don't know hundreds of years ago. Sure, history repeats, right? We were taught to hate when somebody tells us that we should come together and get rid of this mindset that causes slave patrolmen and regular people with police badges now. And we said the same thing about slave patrolmen back then. Their lives mattered back then too, just like blue lives matter today. Right? Like, people are so ready to come against this and fight against what I'm saying, because how dare you, and you're attacking America, and you're attacking white people, and you're causing division. I'm trying to tell you that somebody caused division. If you want to be united, then you're going to have to be united first. And by the way, if you want to be united, then you should allow people who went through a struggle of oppression and are the children of oppression, right? The children of the oppressed should have a voice, just like the oppressed didn't have the chance to have one. Well, their children should be able to speak up for them at some point. Oh, you just learned about the Alabama prison strike this rising? History literally repeating, yeah. You said, what do we put down on paper? You can become a non-citizen national, but you have to know how to fill out your DS-11 correctly. Right? You know, but people are so we're into hate so much, right? That somebody literally is out here saying, oh, because you're talking about it, it means that you want it to stay. No, we're problem solvers. If I'm going to be a problem solver, I must find a problem and then I must solve it. Right? In order to get an answer, you have to have a solution. In order to have a solution, you have to admit there's a problem. In order to have a problem, then we must look at the equation. DS-11 is your passport form. You can fill out your passport form correctly to become a non-citizen national. If you look on the 5th page, which is the first page, you're supposed to fill out. If you actually look on the section you're not supposed to touch until they tell you to sign, you're supposed to, it says on there, you can be a U.S. citizen or you can be a non-citizen national. Non-citizen national means that you are not under the United States. You're not a United States citizen. You're not under the United States corporation, but you're actually protected by the United States of America. Right. And therefore, when you run into slave patrolmen and police officers, you could actually be on what is called a do not detain list. Right. But this is stuff that, once again, people are so entrenched on. He's going to talk about how he hates us. And you're missing the fact that all of us are in prison. First of all of us are imprisoned in the mind. Right? All of us have been imprisoned in the mind first. So we're dealing with slave patrolmen who are, first of all, dealing with your mind. Why do you think that an officer doesn't work for a private corporation? Why do you think that the government, right? Why do you think that the United States is not a corporation? We got to start there, right? Like before people get so frustrated, upset, yelling, I can feel the yelling coming through the screen and stuff like that. First things first, why do you not realize you're in a corporation? You are literally being arrested, told to do stuff, police saying to support this, Blue Lives Matter. That is a corporation. Your senators, your house, your representatives, your governors, your mayors, your judges, they all work for a corporation. If you don't believe me, look this up on your own. 28 USC 3002 15A. Once again, 28 USC 3002 15A. Once again, 28 USC 3002 15A. Once again, 28 USC 3002 15A. One more time, 28 USC 3002 15A. Google it right now and come back. And what you'll discover is that it'll tell you this is the United States law. They will tell you that they are a corporation. Do some more research. The corporation is in Washington, D.C., Washington, Father God, District of Columbia. The God is who's on top of the Senate. It's a religious mindset that wants you to believe that you are supposed to be under the thumb of somebody else. Right? You are in a corporation called the United States. 28 USC 3002 15A. You are in a corporation, and a corporation, right, that allows other private corporations to put you in prisons, no matter what your color is, by the way. You're so busy trying to say 50%. 50% of prisons are not black folk, number one, right? But you're so busy trying to say 13% of y'all commit 50% of crime. That's not true at all. But you're incorporated in the mind. You've been incorporated enough that now you're indoctrinated. No, the moderators are doing what they're supposed to do. If people are on here coming to a place where they're going to be rude and not make it a safe space, the moderators are doing exactly what they are, allowing this to be a safe space. Treat people like human beings, and then the moderators won't say anything or do anything, right? This is a safe space to be able to talk about something. You're in a corporation where you're living unsafe every day, yet you're trying to figure out why we want this to be a safe space. This needs to be a place of retreat. Even in people disagreeing and stuff, I got to deal with the disagreement the whole time to get us to a place where we can have a conversation. Watch this. If you are in debt, you are a slave. Correct? Maybe you don't agree with that, but a slave is in debt, and someone in debt is a slave. History's been repeating itself for a long time. Why do you pay taxes? You pay taxes because on paper they consider you to be property. Your birth certificate, which can be used to be able to get you out of the situation, but your birth certificate is proof that you are what? Property. Why would you sign up to remain property? Because you don't realize that you were born into somebody else who was considered to be property, who was born from somebody else who was considered to be property. When the Constitution was written and they started to have what you think is a real vote, because you think that democracy is a real thing, even though democracy is not in your Constitution, right? Right? Because you think democracy is actually in your Constitution. It's not. That word democracy does not exist in your Constitution. But you guys don't even realize that when that Constitution came to be, right, and the ninth president, who you call the first president, George Washington, comes into place, and they had this vote, so to speak, only 6% of the people were actually eligible to vote, and only probably about less than 1% of them actually voted. Right? You think that you think that you have some type of freedom, but history repeats. All of us are still dealing with what? With being enslaved. First of all, it starts in the mind. Thank you for the love, right? First of all, it starts in the mind. You're thinking about sovereignty, even doing paperwork or whatever, those of you who even think about sovereignty, but sovereignty is a lifestyle. Yeah, credit is modern slavery because they changed the definition, or they redefined what was fine. It was fine as credit. Credit used to just mean what? Credit used to mean, oh, I can go ahead and I'll pay ahead, and whatever you need, just take it out of whatever I paid you. Now credit is how well do you go into debt? Get a credit card. If you can go into debt really well, then we'll go ahead and give you more debt. You think that you call it a credit increase. You say, oh, I got a better increase in credit. I can use more credit. You can go further into debt. You're enslaved. Paying taxes is slavery too, right? Anybody who's in debt is a slave. Anybody who's a slave is in debt. And how do you get out of debt? How do you get out of slavery with the system? One of the most simple ways is to make sure you don't deal with any benefits or privileges. You're taxed off of benefits and privileges. If I'm not using benefits or privileges from the corporation of the United States, then I'm not in debt to the United States. But if you're going to do things and deal with the United States as far as dealing with their benefits and privileges, then you should pay taxes because you are doing things that slaves do. History repeats. See, people are already black, white, blah, blah, this and that or whatever. History repeats, right? I know that not every white person that lived during the time of slavery agreed with slavery. Just like I know that there's a bunch of white people that don't agree with modern day slavery today. You said, see, I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat, and I got sense enough to know it. But yes, Democrats love slavery, Republicans love slavery. Abraham Lincoln was a slave owner. We doing this weird thing where we're trying to separate, get out of the system, right? Get out of the system. The system has you ate up to where you try to be Republican and Democrat. Get out of the system. You see what I'm saying? You're locked up even mentally. History repeats. History repeats. Yes, Lincoln, the first 18 presidents, bare minimum, first 18 presidents were all slave owners. That means even past Lincoln, so you got to go to number 17, Johnson. That goes past Johnson, you got to go to number 18, Ulysses S. Grant. First 4 out of 5 presidents were Virginia slave owners. Number 2 and number 6 were father and son. They were not slave owners all the time, but when they were in the White House, they had slaves. They had overseers, they had slaves. Foggy Bottom down there. We talked about that plenty of times. If you go to DC, go to Foggy Bottom Metro Station. When you come out of there, why do they call it Foggy Bottom? That's where the slaves used to live, in the swamp. Within walking distance to the White House. What is my point? My point is that you need to come out of slavery. That's my point. He said Lincoln never owned slaves. His wife, Mary Todd, was a slave owner. When Lincoln married his wife, Mary Todd, he took on her slaves because he would have been the husband. Therefore, he owned slaves. And when he was in the White House, he owned slaves. Yes, he did. I don't need to get my stuff together. My stuff is together. You said I'd make a good one. That's pretty decent. That's a pretty decent jab there. Right. But I stopped being enslaved in the mind a long time ago, let alone being enslaved by somebody who doesn't have, you say I'd make a good one. You can come here, and if you want to try and make me one, you're more than welcome to. I bet you can. I bet you can. A lot of people real brave. Right. And you should be careful because now we got you on here threatening people. But I take threats all day. That's fine. You said he was enslaved by a bullet in the head. Okay. I don't know what that really does or means or whatever, but okay. Nobody said that slavery is a U.S. thing only. Get with the program. That's not what I said. That's not what this is even about. Y'all are trying to make it because y'all saw a couple pictures and y'all like, he's attacking us. No, I'm trying to tell you that you're enslaved mentally. You're enslaved so mentally that your first mindset was to say, I've got to tell him why everybody in the world owns slaves. Okay, fine. Everybody in the world who owns slaves, every single person, black, white, and everything in between, every slave owner, evil. All right, now that we've gotten that out the way, history repeats. If you don't start realizing that they're using the same tactics to enslave people now that they used back then, you're going to be in trouble. Hey, how you doing, Hayden? Right? That's all we're trying to tell you. You're so busy trying to defend the people who did slavery that you won't realize that to defend slavery means that you must be okay with being enslaved. Or maybe you think you're not enslaved, and so you don't care about those that are. History repeats. History repeats. We're repeating the same thing. We're having the same argument that they were having back at the time of slavery, the same argument they had in 1776, the same argument they had in 1492, the same argument that they had in 1311, the same argument that they had back at the time of Yahshua, or if you don't know who that is, y'all call him Jesus today. The same argument they were having with the Greeks, the same arguments they were having in Kemet and in Cush. We're having the same argument. If we're not careful, you're going to keep having people that are slaves, and you're not going to do anything about it. I'm not here to call you a slave owner. I have a father who loved me very much, but my father never said I love you, right? And then he started saying it when I was an adult, and I started saying it to him. He started saying it back, right? But because my father never said I love you to me doesn't mean that I couldn't be the person to start saying I love you, right? So people, and my father has many sins, just like many other people have many sins and all that stuff. It doesn't mean that just because my father had sins, that those sins had to start keep with me. I can be the curse breaker and I can stop it. How you doing, Philip? Right? Do I think it's okay to have a multicultural society? I think first and foremost, we'd have to respect each other's culture first before we could even talk about multicultural society. And I think everybody has to learn how to love their own culture first before we can start figuring out how to love each other's culture. So we're having a problem with trying to put together multicultural societies in a lot of places because a lot of people are so busy trying to say that I won't listen to what you have to say. You said stop acting like I'm not racist and I'm a hypocrite. I'm a hypocrite. I live above your criteria. You are the hypocrite, the one that lives underneath the criteria. You said that I'm racist, and not one time have I said anything other than we all need to stop being enslaved. You need to search your own heart as to why somebody's saying I'm trying to look out for everybody, and for whatever reason you say that as that means that I'm trying to tear you down. You know, maybe you're okay with living in chains. I think that we should come out of living in chains. And thank you, moderators. I see we've had y'all on it the last few days. Ooh, or last couple of days. You know, you can keep saying whatever you want, right? But we're dealing with this thing. I literally am trying to tell you how history repeats itself for all of us, and yet people are arguing about race because you saw slave patrol. Now, slave patrol did have to do with race, but I'm trying to tell you it's bigger than race because the same thing they did to a group of people and we're really doing to a bunch of people that disagreed. Like I've said this plenty of times, there were Irish people that fought with black folk. And the Irish people that didn't decide to just become low class black folk when they said, hey, don't fight with them, you can become poor whites. The ones that stayed with us, they forced them into breeding camps too. But you don't want to hear that part. You can't even get to that part because you're so busy saying that I'm trying to attack your race or whatever. Right? You're so busy with that. Oh, we have a whole thing on the Willie Lynch letter. Willie Lynch letter is something that teaches you a whole bunch. I believe that the Willie Lynch letter is real. Of course, there's some that would say that the Willie Lynch letter is not real. Either way, if you look at it, it just basically is telling you everything that was done. And if you want to talk about the breeding, if you want to talk about how they had to teach white people that they were actually white, if you had to talk about the fact that they had to, the slave owner would have to make sure that he not only taught the overseers and the slaves themselves how to act, but he would also have to make sure that he taught his family how to act. This is why we try to tell people straight up, right? Like, yeah, it's a pretty tough read, you know. And we tell people that white people had to be taught they were white because they're not. There's no such thing as a white person. You said, do I think welfare is used to keep the lower class and poor people reliant on the government? I believe so, to a certain extent. Yeah. Do I think it's something that's necessary for a lot of people because of what the government has done? That's true too. But I believe that we should make sure that we stop looking to the government. See, this is something else that people, I haven't gotten that comment yet, but it's surely going to come at some point. I get it quite often where you guys need to do stuff for yourself. Stop being a victim, be a victor. I believe that you need to stay away from the government as much as possible and start living around like-minded people and start making your own food and start having your own clothes and start having your own discussions and making your own homes and doing all this stuff on your own land, because your own land will become allodial. That means the police officers can't step foot on it anyways. I believe that you should separate from the system, no matter what your color is, as much as possible. You said you hate the division in governments because they've always done this and just could be evil. Yeah, I believe that like-minded people should make sure they take care of each other. You said nothing is free, yeah, including your freedom. So you should work towards making sure that you're free of a wicked and corrupt government. It's always interesting to me that I don't think people even comprehend that your founding fathers, for those of you consider yourself to be American citizens, your founding fathers told you that you should make sure that you're always ready to fight against tyranny and oppression. Yet when people say let's fight against tyranny and oppression and let's come out of it, people are like, we want to uphold the Constitution. Your Constitution tells you to make sure you get rid of tyranny and oppression. It's not until the 13th and 14th Amendment that y'all start getting okay with slavery. You think the 13th Amendment freed slaves. The 13th Amendment said if they lock you up, they can treat you like a slave. Right? That's what 13th Amendment says. The 14th Amendment said all those that became freedmen when we were allowed to have 40 acres and a mule, now anybody who's born on what they consider to be American soil, you can't be free anymore. 15th Amendment, you think that's about voting rights and all this other stuff or whatever, but they made sure that you couldn't vote anyways. There were more people that were black in the Senate in the late 1800s than there are today. I'm telling you, the history repeats. Right? Who started slavery? I already did the whole thing as far as I don't care what color you are. If you were a slave owner, you're despicable. So we don't need to go there, right? I'm talking about history repeats. You're saying one thing and your immediate response is to go, I know everything he's going to talk about. You stay with us long enough, right? But if you want to talk about chattel slavery, as far as who started it based upon color, well, we can go to the Pope. And then the Pope, who even made sure that Queen Isabel could send people to the land of Asheroth, you call it Hispaniola, when they sent Christopher Columbus in 1492. And then in 1493, they made the Doctrine of Discovery official that said that if a white Christian male was not in your land, that that the people that were there weren't considered to be real people. Therefore, you could discover somebody else's land. So yeah, if we're going to talk about chattel slavery, we can go to a specific place, or chattel slavery based upon skin color, we can go to a specific place for sure. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I appreciate your comment, and I know what you're trying to do, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm not talking about division. I'm talking about first respecting cultural perspective. I see the joke about worm food. I'm not gonna go there. You know I can't go there. How do I feel about the Bible? I'm a follower of the Bible. I'm not a Christian though. There's a difference. Cristianos is different than followers of the way or Avda or etc. Right? So I'm a helot. Some people would call that a pastor, but I'm definitely not into Christianity. Right? Some know the difference. Some don't. Maybe we'll talk about it some today. I'm not sure. Yeah, some don't like knowledge. Sometimes, right? Knowledge is intimacy. A lot of people aren't intimate with this, so therefore you're getting something that makes you a little uncomfortable. You said, don't you feel we're past? Okay, PAST. Okay, past that as citizens, not the wealthy or politicians, but us as a people. If we were, then why are people seeing this and automatically saying that I hate white people? And here's something else. When are people who are oppressed, and not, by the way, that's not only black people. A lot of people had to be oppressed. You know how many people you had to oppress mentally to get them to believe that they were better because of the color of their skin? A lot of people are oppressed. But we've never had a sit down. One thing that this nation has never done, the nation comes up with nonsense and BS apologies and all this stuff. But one thing this nation has never done is actually sat down and said, you know what, we need to heal. Let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about how this messed up a lot of things. Let's talk about how this frustrated people. Okay, the badge comes from England and stuff like that. Sure, no problem. We have no problem. We talked about that, how America itself was a prison colony, just like Australia itself was a prison colony. So I can't expect the prisoner who's just basically kicked out of their country to start acting correctly because they were prisoners. They weren't reformed. They weren't thought of well. These were poor, oppressed people that they didn't even have enough. They were trying to kill so many of them. Matter of fact, in England, around the time that they sent people over on the Mayflower, that y'all call Puritans and stuff, they weren't called that at the time. But around the same time that they sent them over, they were killing people so much in England because they didn't have prison system like we have today. So they were killing so many people, trying to keep them, off the street, that they were killing 7-year-olds that were stealing cups. And the reason why, when they asked certain judges, they were quoted as saying things like, we don't hang people because of crime. We hang people so that there will be no crime. They were hanging everybody and killing everybody, and people were still pickpocketing at the hangings and stuff like that. So there was so much crime, they were kicking them out to other places. So I can't be frustrated and upset, right? When they sent out some extremists, that was the Puritans were, but they also sent out some criminals. They also sent out poor people they want to deal with, right? So I can't be frustrated when poor people act like poor people, not poor people in what they have physically, poor people mentally, right? So this, like, for example, with reparations, that's why I always say reparations is going to start with inward reparations, right? Reparations will start with inward reparations. I'm not looking for the government to give us what they haven't given. If they wanted to give you reparations, they would have gave it, because they give it to Israel, right? Because they were involved in what happened in the concentration camps. That's why they give it to Israel. Look at those train tracks that are leading up to concentration camps. You'll see that they have American names on it. They were involved in that. So they give reparations to Israel, no problem. They still give it all the time. They are modern Israel, right? They give it to um, slave owners who lost slaves. Abraham Lincoln made sure, right? All you got to do is look in the state of Maryland, right next to Washington, D.C. He said, yeah, y'all making this look bad. Y'all can't be having slaves like that or whatever. I got to get rid of my slaves in the White House. You got to get rid of your slaves too. They said, we ain't getting rid of our slaves unless you pay us. So they can give reparations anytime they want. But if they're not going to give it to you, then the next step is what? And really should be the first step, have reparations for yourself. If I were to take a bunch of black people and say, hey, we're just going to, what we call black people, whatever, right? Black, Moorish, whatever you want to call yourself, right? And I said, let's Alkebulan, Ethiopian, African, okay, I know the terms, native, whatever, indigenous to wherever, okay? And I'm going to say, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put all y'all together. If y'all have a poor mindset, then guess what? You're still going to mess up. I'm not asking for the white man to rehabilitate us. If he was going to, the white man, first of all, which is a social construct, but I'm not asking for the white man to do any rehabilitation. If he wanted to rehabilitate us, if police officers were going to rehabilitate us, if police officers were going to make Southside Chicago okay, they would have done it already. If police officers were going to make sure that New York City was presentable and that there wasn't so much crime, they would have done it already. If police officers were going to make sure that Miami was better, they would have done so already. Okay, if the governor was going to make sure that they weren't stealing your money in Mississippi, they would have stopped doing it. Right? If the governor in Texas wasn't going to be stealing your money, and the governor in North Carolina was going to steal your money, they would have stopped doing it. If the governor of California was going to stop killing off people or whatever, then right, and using it to become president, Ronald Reagan, then they would have stopped doing it. I'm not worried about that. If the government was going to take care of women, they would have done it already. If the president was going to take care of everybody, they would have done it already. Right? History repeats. Well, you're talking about the abolishment of white supremacy. The problem is that you're trying to abolish white supremacy from the inside. If you use that term, white supremacy, supremacy means that somebody's better than you. And I don't even believe that there's a such thing as a white person, because nobody is the color white. So therefore, I'm not really worried about, white, so to speak, supremacy or whatever, because I don't think that you're a better person than anybody else. But if I know what you're talking about as far as the system, problem is you're not going to defeat a system by using the tools of the system. You're going to have another system that's outside of it. Right? That's what you're going to have to do. Black, white, or otherwise, whatever you want to call yourself, you're going to have to come outside the system. History repeats itself. And the first thing that they enslave is the mind. You said you'll see how much of this matters when the world is glowing in the dark. The world is glowing in the dark already because it's on fire. And the problem is that this social construct, it matters no matter how much you want to look at it or not. No matter how much you want to say you don't see color in different things or not. Like, the world is on fire and people are using what we're talking about as an excuse to continue to burn it. And thank you for everybody who's being part of the community. We're having a lot of comments and stuff today. I can't keep up with them all. I'm trying, but thank you so much, right? But we're trying to talk about history repeats. History repeats. This is the same conversation that's been going on for years. You know what needs to happen? We need to start putting works with it. I got faith that the system is going to get better. Faith without works is dead. A lot of people got a lot of faith, but no works, right? First and foremost, we got to work to make sure that there's a shift in mindset. They got you fighting over marriage. You can't even stay married in this country. All it took was coronavirus, 75% divorce rate. You can't even keep families together. How are you going to talk about racial equity? How are you going to talk about racial justice and what y'all call racial equality? When equality is a myth, there's no two people on the earth that are equal to each other. That's what makes you so valuable. There will never be another you. You can't be equal to anybody else. But you're trying to get racial equality, and you can't even make sure that it works in the home. See, that's where the slavery started. Watch this. You sign marriage contract with the state when you could make a marriage contract for yourself. Why are you signing a marriage contract with the state? You're saying I want to give my marriage to the state so that the state can be in control of my marriage. That's why when y'all break up, you got to go back to the state, and the state helps to rip your families apart. They're in control of every aspect of your life, even to your marriage. How dare we act like we're gonna have racial equality? We can't even get the home right. I'm spitting lies. Divorce rate didn't go up to 75% in a lot of places in America. Divorce rate before COVID wasn't 51%. I'm spitting lies. You need to check your facts. Or check your people's facts, because I'm listening to what they say. How you doing, Sister Barbara? You see what I'm saying? Like, we can't even get marriage correct. People can't even become together one in marriage. And you trying to talk about we're going to make sure that we get the world together. People aren't even taking care of their children correct. Yeah, that's why I said I'm black all day, every day, but I'm not black on paper. But thank you. I agree with you. I already know where you're headed. We teach sovereignty and all those different things. Right. But yeah, like people are so busy talking about black, or boy, whatever, white, whatever. You don't even realize that that's on paper. Those aren't correct anyways. See, the slave patrolman back then had to be taught the same thing the police officer is taught now, which is that if anybody, see, watch this. We think that slave patrolmen only worked on their only job was to lock up slaves, but slave patrolmen locked up enemies of the state, enemies against what the state's interest was. Slave patrolmen went up into the north and got slaves too, or got people that were free and made them slaves, just like police officers do that today. Once again, I know on paper you shouldn't be black, blah, blah, this and that, but there are Africans and many different tribes that have no problem calling themselves black, and all the way back to Kemet, Kush, slippery blacks, Ethiopians, whatever, right? But I get you. That's so I get you. All right. Stay with me. I get to some of y'all just coming on. I promise you I know a little bit of something, right? We are all brown, LOL, different shades of it. Okay, fine, whatever. That's what you want to say. That's what you want to call yourself. That's what you want to get it to. So therefore, but you know what I mean by the social construct, okay? Okay, by the social construct. All right. And this is why today there are police officers who mean to do you a lot of greatness. They mean to do you well. However, they can't do you but so much greatness or do but so well. Why? Because they're part of a system. Right? You got to come out the system. The police officer is not going to change the system because he works for the corporation, and the corporations are in control of the United States corporation. Y'all don't believe that? Watch this. You ready for this? Some of y'all might be able to do this simultaneously on TikTok, where you can have your TikTok screen open and Google at the same time and scroll, or maybe you can go on another device. You ready for this? Watch this. What is the definition of capitalism? Google the definition of capitalism, and you tell me if somebody's going to change the system by staying in it. You said if the community changed, there would be no need for policing people. Yeah, if the community was not in the system, you're not going to be in the system of the United States and not have police officers. But once again, hear what I'm saying. Let's get the basics. What is the definition of capitalism? Capitalism is defined as when it is a system. That's where ISM on a word makes it a system. So capitalism is defined as what? Capitalism is defined as a system in which politics and economics are used to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations, and the private corporations are over the state or the government. That's the definition of capitalism. You believe that capitalism is the way. By the way, that's been the fight since 1776. The British were starting to go away from chattel slavery only, and we're like, we need capitalism with chattel slavery for those who get locked up, right? They were starting to already go away from it. You had other people who didn't want it. That's what the fight about 1776 really was. And then they used blackface when they threw the T over to say that the Americans that were the original Americans, look in Black's Law Dictionary, which is an actual real legal reference, look in that dictionary, you'll discover that the original American is considered to be a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. They threw tea off a boat. They put on blackface. They took the stuff that they had scalped off of natives they killed, put it on, made obscene gestures, and said, "We are now the Americans." That's where this modern American comes from. It started right there, right? And so now you're dealing with the that was the fight, saying that we are the Americans. We're going to defend our way of life. We're going to defend the slaves that we want to keep. If you don't believe it, look in your Declaration of Independence, where it talks about the bond and the free. They didn't use the word slave, but the bond. Just like when you're born on your birth certificate, you are the stock. Your name and everything is the stock, and around it is a bond. The same thing that they did when they were selling people at Wall Street. That's where Wall Street gets its name. There was a big wall that they had on the street, and on that street, against the wall, they were selling slaves. You said that's a lot of stuff that's been stretched. Okay. Tell me in Black's Law Dictionary, which is still something that they use today, not written by a black man, white person whose last name is black. Look up the definition of a colored person, of a Negro, and tell me what you find. Look at the definitions of these things. Look up the definition of an American. You'll find more than one definition because there's more than one type of American. You just haven't read law, or at least not that law. Right? And look on your birth certificate if you have an original one, especially, and you'll see that that's the stock. Your name is the stock, and around it is a bond. Same thing that they were doing when they were trading for and buying slaves at Wall Street. Look it up for yourself. So busy saying I'm wrong. Look it up for yourself. And what I'm trying to get you to see is the same thing they were doing to people back then is the same thing they're doing today. Because you think that only black people have birth certificates? Of course not. Everybody has a birth certificate. Your birth certificate can be worth at least $6 million per birth certificate. At least. Right? That's why we teach classes on this. That's why I teach a whole bunch of stuff, not just these live sessions. You're getting just the tip of the iceberg. You don't even know how this stuff works. Guess what? Money. Have you ever thought about the fact that your nation, your country, the United States Corporation, is supposedly $30 trillion in debt? Do you now watch this? You're a smart person. Let me go ahead and just say to you that you're a smart person, right? I don't think you really can cash your birth certificate. That's something that people keep saying. I haven't found the proof or the evidence of it. I hope that you can. I've been looking for it, but I haven't really found it, right? But people do say you can sell your birth certificate and stuff like that. Now you can. I wouldn't sell it. I would actually use it to become free, because if you were born in a state, you can actually show that you were born in an actual country. Every state, it's the word state and country are interchangeable lawfully. So you actually want to use your birth certificate, if you can, to be able to prove that you're a non-citizen national rather than a citizen of the United States Corporation. But that's a whole other thing to decide that we'd have to go over, right? But a lot of people try to, or even what's one of the things people have been doing now? They've been trying to, what is it, certify or whatever your birth certificate or something like that. And I'd be careful with that, because if you get it certified, or if you get it, whatever they're calling it, that means that you're actually agreeing to what the birth certificate says. So I wouldn't do that either. I would just get my DS-11 done, which is your passport form. And if you do it correctly, if you know how to do it, if you know what box to check off and everything correctly, and where to put your 5 zeros and all that stuff, and make sure you sign it correctly without prejudice, yada, 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 then that's the easiest way to make sure that they change you in the system. You said, what if it doesn't say USA on your birth certificate? Your birth certificate, if your birth certificate comes from somewhere where it says that you were born in a state, then you need to make sure that you, right, if it's signed, put it like that. If your birth certificate is signed, and pretty much everybody's birth certificate is signed, then you need to go through something to be able to change some of it, right? But they have everybody on lockdown, is my point. It's not just like they have black people. Sure, black people, we are used as a y'all use the term scapegoat. I more so use the term sacrificial lamb. Scapegoat actually is a Hebrew term that they were using, where the scapegoat got to be set free, but was just set free outside the society or whatever. The lamb was the one that was slaughtered on behalf of people, right? So they use blackness and stuff like that, and racism as a sacrificial lamb. But you think, like, watch this. Do you think that Warren Buffett cares if you're black or if you're white? You think that Bill Gates cares if you're black or if you're white? You think that Donald Trump cares if you're black or if you're white? You think that Elon Musk cares if you're black or if you're white? You know what I'm saying? Like they don't care. Like when you get to that level, they have you fighting over black and white. The people who are actually thriving are not worried about that. They enslave you first mentally to where that's your fight. They do to a certain extent because they want you to fight about it. But Elon Musk is not sitting up there being like, oh yeah, I'm fighting. Like now he might have some kind of racist rhetoric, if you will, but he's not sitting there during his day worrying about billions and trillions of dollars moving and stuff like that and being like, oh yeah, let me go out and put my hoodie on. Some of them be doing that. But it's very rare, you know. Now you'll see stuff come out of him or whatever where you're like, wow, that was pretty crazy. So you'll hear him say stuff from time to time. But Donald Trump, yeah, like Donald Trump, as Donald Trump says whatever it is that's necessary, and I'm not a Republican or Democrat, so I don't care about that part of it. But Donald Trump has said from the beginning whatever's necessary to get him what he needed financially. That's it. Donald Trump talked about Republicans were racist and that he should actually, if he were to run, he would run Democrat. He said that with Oprah, right? Oprah, who doesn't care about skin color as much as y'all think she does either, right? But Donald Trump did that, right? Donald Trump was like, but then Donald Trump, all of a sudden, he's gonna start running for office, right? And next thing you know, everything is about a white supremacist rhetoric. He doesn't care. He knows you care. He knows you care about it. You know what I'm saying? He knows you care about that. He doesn't care about that. He doesn't live his life like that. He's not worried about that. He wants y'all. You say it's rich versus poor, sure, but let's not act like they don't use color in that dynamic, right? Because racism is just basically another form of classism. You said Elon Musk is an African American. No, Elon Musk is somebody born of Europeans, and he happened to be born in South Africa, and he's somebody that hasn't really done much for South Africans that don't look like him. Like, let's get it correct. See, it wasn't until the 14th Amendment that you guys even started thinking that because you were born somewhere that's where you're from. It didn't used to matter where you were from. It used to matter who you were from, right? But in the last couple hundred years, you don't know that. South Africa is European? No, not by much. The people that they try to put in front of you, where they're trying to make you think white. But if you've been just paying attention in the last few years, down in Africa, especially the people of Zululand, stuff like that. But a lot of people, they've been having a lot of fights over there because a lot of the land and stuff that was supposed to be taken care of and given back to the people, since Nelson Mandela in 1992, literally just in 1992, we're talking about 3 decades ago, not that long ago, right? If you're 30 years ago. If you're 30 years old, right, or if you're 35 years old, maybe, right, you can remember. But if you're 30 years old, you were born at a time to where South Africa finally was allowed to be supposedly an independent nation, and yet, it's like 90-something% of the land still belongs to a few people who, by the social construct, are considered to be white. But the population over there is like 90-something%, 90, 95, 96% black. So there's been fights going on over there. Quiet is kept. Just do some research on it. You say it's better in South Africa now. That's what they tell you. But the people are still fighting over land and saying that they're not being treated with basic human dignity and human rights. Just because you want to talk about parts of Johannesburg, because Johannesburg is not a great city as is. Like if I were to take my family to Johannesburg, we would have to be in a place where we're going to be on lockdown from about 6 p.m. on. Right, because there's some stuff that's going to happen at night if you're not on the other side of that wall that's going to jack you up. Right, but apartheid was something that was happening until 1992. You think that apartheid, that all these people were killing people because of the color of their skin, and then in 1992 everything just stopped, or in 30 years they stopped something that they've been doing for hundreds of years? You said, so our race doesn't matter when it comes to the matrix. Sure, race matters because race, first of all, is competition. The only reason why you put black and white on is because the Pope added that on, and then people started adding it on with the white man's burden and manifest destiny and Darwinism and eugenics, and the list goes on and on and on, right? But yeah, it's a competition. The competition is something where people started adding color to it. But I'm trying to tell you, history repeats. It's real easy to just be like, race doesn't matter. I don't see color. Okay, well, you tell that to the person who's still using color to be able to get what he wants. He's using color in his race, in his competition. That's what race was. Racism started where a bunch of European nations were trying to outfight each other. And by the way, let's not just say European, a whole bunch of nations all over the world were fighting each other in a race to be able to see what happened. That's really what the system of racism is. But then when it became about color, now we start talking about chattel slavery. Now we're having a different conversation. But yeah, if you want to study racism, you can study racism between Kemetic people and Israelites. You can study racism between Cush and Kemet. You can study racism in between what is it, Mali and and Ghana and I'm forgetting who came before that. Forgive me. But you can look at that. Look at the racism that started happening. At first, there was no race. Everybody was supposed to try and be the best in Timbuktu, but then started having competition against each other. Now Timbuktu is nothing, close to what it used to be. And then you add now oppression to that, and you have a whole different thing. You got Japan and China, China and Taiwan. In India, you got 5 classes of people. People only try to focus on the first 4, but there's the untouchables at the bottom, the 5. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate it. Right? Like I'm just trying to tell you, you're saying all these things, but we don't even recognize where this comes from. Their history repeats itself. Yeah, governments have been putting you up against each other. Matter of fact, if it hadn't been African government against African government messing around with each other and fighting each other and helping other people to enslave us, then you wouldn't even have to worry about all the stuff that we went through. So if we learn from that, even as a diaspora, as human beings, that if we stop fighting against each other, we won't allow somebody else to come in and further the divide. However, you're living in the last days. In the last days, there will be wars and rumors of wars. So you got to prepare yourself to separate from a system that's about war. And you must be prepared. I'm not trying to tell people go out and just buy whatever weaponry, whatever, but you better be prepared if you're going to put together a community like that, defend yourself. That looks photoshopped. Okay. Well, do some research or go visit, go visit Houston museums. There's actually some museums where they'll show you some slave patrol badges. How about that? Go visit that. Right. It looks photoshopped. It looks photoshopped. Okay, whatever. It goes to a certain point where somebody's just going to agree to, or just going to disagree just for the sake of disagreeing. But we're dealing with it, and we're dealing with the inhumane. We are already dealing with the inhumane against the humane, because the inhumane says, "I don't care about that. Just let go, blah blah, this and that, or whatever." Like, I don't think people recognize, if there was one. Watch this. If there was one woman forced against her will in a sexual manner, you should never say to that woman, "Just get over it. Life goes on. Stop being a victim and be a victor." If you have a group of people who were forced against their will, you should never say to them on a exponential level, "Get over it. Stop doing this." Right? Stop being a victim and be a victor. But that's what you do. And by the way, black people do it to white people too. When we go, "Hey, get over it. I'm tired of y'all saying," because there's some white people that actually want to know. Now, they're still a little off maybe on how they present it, but real talk, and we're using the social construct here, white, black, etc. Right? But there are some white people that actually do want to know things that we immediately jump down their throat. How dare you, blah blah, this and that, all this stuff, whatever, right? But we need to be able to be like, hey, they had to be lied to as well, right? Perfect example of this: Republic of Congo. What happened in the Republic of Congo? You had some of the most vicious and atrocious things ever committed, and nobody talks about it. King Leopold II. We're talking about Belgium. I went to Belgium, and I'm telling you, or I think it was just 4 years ago. And in Belgium, I promise you, it is not what you think it is over there. It is a lot of racism that's going on over there. But you know why that is? Belgium, for the longest time in the late 1800s, still did not want anything to do with the slave trade. But King Leopold I wanted to do something. He couldn't quite get it together, but his son, King Leopold II, created, just like they have a fake corporation in the United States, he created a fake corporation in Congo. He found out that they had rubber over there. He was like, cool, I want to get in on this. So he found a way to take the money that he got just by being a sovereign. He hired the military, sent them back to boot camp, and taught them that basically when you run into other people, these black people, they're not actual people, but they're animals. So they might look like you, they might sound like you, they might speak a language like you can speak a language. They might even learn how to marry your language. But hey, parrots can do that. Instead, they taught them that. Then they sent them there and had these people commit some of the most vicious atrocities and gave them rewards when they did so. They had to change the mindset of a whole people. They had to change the mindset of a whole people first to go and say it's okay to attack these people before you could change their mindset of them. They got to, so people who are born of those people, they're going to have to go through something to where they get to deal with the trauma of what was given to. You had to literally dehumanize somebody so they could dehumanize somebody else. They're running the same game, right? You have to teach the cops. You have to teach, and I'm somebody, look, who did police work, did it outside the military and inside the military. Okay, did some police work in my life, not much outside, but did some. Right, couldn't really handle what they really wanted me to do outside of it or whatever. But even in the military, I did some MP work, and I even had to do not just MP work on the ship and stuff. I had to do stuff going domestically, gate guard, go to other countries, et cetera, right? And you have to be taught to dehumanize folk. You had to be taught to dehumanize folk, but you have to be taught to dehumanize self. You have to detach from humanity. This is why a lot of police officers end up with a lot of divorces. Oh, I don't think that person was saying anything bad. He was saying MPs lead the way. He was just saying the same thing. Whoever that was that got muted, I don't know who it was. Whoever muted them, I don't think they were actually saying anything. They were actually talking about military. They were basically saying like, "They're with me. Thank you for your service," type thing. I don't remember the name of who it was though. But yeah, you know, these are the things that at least I think I didn't catch the whole comment. Maybe they weren't. You know, I think they're doing all right, Teeth. Right? I think they're doing okay. You know, but you know, like these are the things that we have to realize and recognize, right? Like that we're having a conversation that causes us to really be jumpy, right? And we're all a little jumpy, right? Okay, Jay Williams, but that's something that if you're going to be abusive, yeah, that's something that would get you muted. You know, that's ad hominem. We're not trying to deal with that today, right? Or any day, you know. But these are the things that we're talking about. You know, we're so jumpy about it. We see this, we go, oh, he's trying to talk about this, or he hates this people, blah blah. No, I'm not. I'm trying to tell you that history repeats, right? History repeats, right? History repeats. History repeats itself. Okay, we didn't. All right, T's. All right, I don't want to start a thing. Tisu said it's part of the community. And he's just saying that there's some stuff that's there. I don't know. I feel like, right, but here we go. So like, but thank you to everybody. We appreciate the moderators and all that, right? But we have to realize and recognize like that we're, that this is something that can make us jumpy if we're not careful, right? See now, and okay, now y'all want to go. See now, people are antagonizing people. So y'all, if something happens to you because you want to antagonize, that's on you, right? But and all these different things, a lot of us are coming to this place where we're dealing with this. You said, "Wow, so Indigenous women get muted on your line for listing numbers." Well, if a moderator went and listed muted you for listing a number, what numbers did you list? Go ahead, working sports mom. The whole Indigenous thing, by the way, is not going to make me feel guilty. I'm part Indigenous, and there are Indigenous people that agree on different things. We're trying to make this a safe space. But what was it that you were putting up that you need me to see? We'll stop for you if you'd like. The moderators have to be very careful because people come on here and either lie or do certain things or say things that are hurtful to people. Okay. The number of Indigenous tribes in this country. All right. Yesterday and today. Okay, so all you did was put a number down. That's it. You didn't say anything else. You just wrote a number and they just muted you. I mean, we can finish the conversation real quick. We can stop everything to make sure that we're making sure that you're okay. I have no problem with it. So, what's the number that you wanted to put up, and what was the overall point, if you don't mind, of what you were trying to say? Hold on, working sports mom. See, that's what I'm saying. You're not even dealing with me. I literally said you can deal with me. The moderators are not muting you. Don't even worry if they respond. Whatever. Focus on my voice. Focus on me. What is it that you need to put down there and express? that's going to help us to be able to see that history repeats. I want to be able to listen to you and support you as my sister. Okay. Well, if you put a number up, I'll try my best to catch it. We got a lot of comments coming, but it's the, history repeats is what we're trying to basically get across, right? History repeats is basically what we're trying to get across. Said Juneteenth is not significant enough for a holiday outside of Texas. Um, okay, if that's your mindset, if that's what your mindset is, then that's your mindset. What that has to do with history repeats, I don't really see anything. I guess we could use history repeats as far as, since you've decided that what black people should celebrate, or what a whole diaspora should celebrate, or whatever, whether you're black, white, or whatever, because you decided that what people should celebrate, we should all bow down to it. That's the thing of history repeating, sure. You said you were talking about indigenous people yesterday, and you were just asking why you got muted. Once again, I didn't mute you. But once again, what is it that you said that you need to get to see? I have no problem with it. Go ahead and share what it is that you're saying that was muted. It's very weird. It's very odd. I if you want me to say I'm sorry that somebody muted you. I didn't mute you, so I can't really. If you're looking for me to take accountability for it, I guess those people that are working on my behalf, okay, they said something, and you probably said something that made them have to look twice, because once again, we have to make sure that this is a safe environment. As you've noticed, that there are a lot of people on here that say a lot of weird and wild things to people, just because they don't like what's going on about the subject matter. So it is what it is. If you feel like that's been done, I think I've done the best I can. I could lie to you and say I'm sorry for muting you, but I didn't. Right? But history repeats. You know, and history repeats. This is a moment where we have to realize in time that we have a chance to be able to see history repeat, and instead of doing the same thing we've done, which is causing the repeat, right? To continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, is the very definition of what? Of insanity. Correct? It is the very definition of insanity. So we should learn from things that have happened in history and react differently. You said you think you should get mad at one another if it's anything less than the truth. Sure. I don't know if we should get mad per se, but we should denounce truth. So we've been repeating the same actions, right? I love Frederick Douglass, right? Been to his home, love Frederick Douglass, right? Married, by the way, to a black woman and then to a white woman. So obviously it's not a thing of like he cares about this. Matter of fact, his family, his children said they had a problem with him. He married a white woman because of what he stood for, or whatever. And he said, hey, I need love, and she loves me, right? So, love a lot of things about Frederick Douglass, this and that, or whatever. He stood up as much as he could for the culture. He went over to Europe. He went over to Ireland. Matter of fact, he was forced to run over there when they were trying to still get him as a runaway slave or whatever, before people paid off his debt, right? Because a slave is in debt, and someone in debt is a slave. But Frederick Douglass was trying to do things with the help of the president. The president's not going to help you. See, we should learn, instead of doing the same thing, why am I going to the president when no president? I don't care if they're black or not. By the way, Lincoln was black, Eisenhower was black, Obama was black. None of them really did anything for us. Now people say, well, Lincoln did that, but Lincoln didn't give you 40 acres of the mule. General Sherman did. Well, Lincoln gave us the Emancipation Proclamation. He did that to be able to say, hey, if you want to be slaves in the United States Army, come over here and you can be slaves up here. I work for us down here and die for us. He said, but meanwhile, he was killing off hundreds of native people, the Lakota people, on the same day that he signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Right? Like, we should learn from that. Lincoln wrote before he became president, years before he became president, because he knew that people were frustrated. So in 1958, he made it a point to say, hey, look, I don't think that black people should even be, I don't think that black people should ever be in a position to where they're going to be even considered to be close to white people. We should keep things the same in the system. See, because Lincoln died, he got to die in the eyes of many, a martyr. Right? And Republicans and Democrats both try to claim him all the time, but he got to die in the eyes of many as a martyr because he died. If Lincoln had been around, his goal was not to make sure that black and white people lived together in harmony. Now, I'll give Lincoln some credit. because Lincoln was going to try and give you them greenbacks. Lincoln was going to try and get you outside of the Federal Reserve System, right? So I give him credit there. And Lincoln also was going to try and say, hey, let's see what black people do if they get some money on their own. And he was going to allow Frederick Douglass to actually have the Freedmen Bank, right? He was over the Freedmen Bank, Frederick Douglass, right? But Lincoln was not worried about harmony and peace and stuff. But since he died, you know, or you live by his log cabin, cool, right? But since he died, what happens with a lot of people is they go, oh, Lincoln was he was a hero. Lincoln was not trying to be heroic. We don't know what Lincoln would have done, but Lincoln was not worried about it. Lincoln was going to make sure that the South was going to pay. The only reason why that's part of the reason why they didn't mind him dying and let him go ahead and get shot the way he did over them greenbacks is because that if Lincoln had been in, he was going to make the South suffer. Andrew Johnson, his vice president, was a Southern slave owner, and said, no, we're going to go ahead and make sure that these things are together. You said, I have no idea what happened. History has been erased, covered up, blind eye turned. Okay. So, so I have no idea what happened because history has been erased, but you have an idea what's happened because it's been erased. And you have an idea to tell people what they should or shouldn't say. You said Lincoln was a Moor. Lincoln was a Melungeon. Lincoln was a slave. Lincoln's father was white. Look up Lincoln when he's a child. They put it in some of the history books. I remember when I was young, it didn't make sense to me till I got older, but they'll say it even some of the history books. They'll be like, oh yeah, Lincoln lived in a state in which, or in a territory in which it was okay to treat your children like slaves. What type of children were allowed to be treated like slaves? Lincoln was a Melungeon. He was a third white, if you want to go a third. His father was white. His mother was half black African and half black native. And they knew it. Look at when Lincoln was running for president. Look at when Lincoln was running for president. Go look up all the stuff that they put about him. Look up the satire. Look at the political cartoons that they made. Lincoln always has big lips. He's presented as a monkey. He has black people carrying him. He has monkeys carrying him, all this different stuff because they knew he was black. And by the way, that wasn't an uncommon thing for somebody who had black blood in them to make it to high positions. George Washington's wife, she passed for white. She was known as a brunette or brunette. Brunette or brun en français literally means brown. So she was like somebody who was considered to have brown features or brownish. So she had Negroid features, but she passed for white. That happened all the time. So that's why even when we talk about race is not as simple as just racism, white versus black. There's colorism, there's sexism, there's all types of stuff when you talk about this stuff. Right? So you have to look at this correctly. Yeah, Eisenhower definitely passed. And look at his mama. If you ever get a chance to look at a picture of his mama was black. Or she could pass kind of too, but she had too many Negroid features to pass. But these are people in different classes. So there are some people that were black. This is like when you look at Haiti and look at when you look at what the French did. Look at Haiti, look at Louisiana, right? You'll see that there were 40, some people will say there's anywhere from 40 to 400 different classes that they had officially at some point to be able to say that there were different color shades and everybody legally had to do certain things because of the color of their skin. It's not as simple as just black, white. That's why I try to tell people. But people hear when we saying stuff and they go, he's talking about black and white. Like, it's not even that simple. There's a bunch of people now that are darker than me that we wouldn't consider to be people that care about us. Yeah, the brown bag challenge. There you go, right? The brown bag. They use brown bags of different colors to people to say this is what you were and weren't. Or if you were darker than the brown bag, lighter than the brown bag, some people did that. Right? Like, you're not going to tell me that Oprah Winfrey's out here trying to, well, Oprah, she opened up a school in Africa. What are they teaching that school? You ever been to that school? You ever seen that school? Oprah Winfrey, she doing all this stuff, like she did this, she did that, or whatever. Like, Oprah Winfrey doesn't do anything other than do things that gets her a tax return. She don't care if you're black, white, or whatever. Oprah Winfrey's been in interviews where little black girls have been like, I'm so excited to have seen you in this movie. Thank you for doing this movie and help me to be able to see myself in the movie. What can you say to little black girls like myself? And she'll be like, well, what I would say to all little girls. In other words, I'm not going to talk about black. I don't care about it. Y'all clap about it, but she's telling you that's not the system that's not her position. That's not her role to play in this system. That's not her role to play in the government. That's not her role to play in society. Yeah, and a lot of people who pass are usually going to be the most vigorous against it, because people who pass, like for example, I'm somebody who comes from a mother who could pass for white. Although if you look at her carefully, you can tell she's black. But then her mother was extremely like, and when my mother and my father got together, both sides of the family, both their parents did not like what happened. They showed up to the wedding, and after that, wouldn't talk to each other until I was born. I was the firstborn, hence my last name Ofori. Right? So I was firstborn, but they didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that my mother was too light, my father was too dark. If you look at my brothers and sisters, they look like mixed race children. So it's bigger than that, right? A lot of people don't comprehend it. It's bigger than that. Just some Africans said in school was a cover up for those young ladies who have been taken and mistreated. I mean, some people would say that. I don't know enough about that though, but yeah, I heard a little bit about that. But we don't want to have a conversation. We don't want to be honest. We don't want to have righteous. We want to be right. We don't want to be righteous. Like, let's have righteous conversation about it. Right, lawful standing, righteousness. Right, legal standing, righteousness. Let's have some righteous conversation instead of trying to be right. Let it go. Let what go? 150 years ago. Okay. Let the Constitution go. When was that written? It doesn't make sense. Let the language you're speaking go. When was that started? It's not even a real language. It's Anglo-ish or English. It's not even technically of the Anglo people, because the people in England are not the Anglo people. They were killed off by the first king, William the Conqueror, who was known as William the Bastard. But let it go. Let it go. Don't listen to what your parents ever told you. Let it go. Let it go. Don't make sure that you take care of your hair. Let it go. Let it go. Don't wear clothes that are clean. That's somebody's social construct on you. Let it go. You said you can't allow them to destroy history. Many people don't know who they are. Yeah, well, many people are into his story. They don't even know their story. Right? That's that whole let it go. You're continuing the problem. No, no, no. I didn't start the problem, and I'm not continuing. See, watch this. Check this out. If I stop talking about racism forever, would racism go away? If it became an illegal term, which they're trying to make it, right? They're doing their best to do so. But if it was illegal to mention the word racism, racist, racial, race, etc., if we just made it illegal, would it go away? Just because you don't call it by it. See, you believe in that Shakespearean stuff, a rose by any other name is still a rose, but fine, use it in this. If you were to call it any other name, it still is what it is. You said reparations dissolves racism for some. I believe there are a lot of black people that would do well if they got reparations for sure, but there are a lot of people that wouldn't. And by the way, if you want reparations, don't worry about money. Worry about land. Right? Don't worry about money. Worry about land. We already started the classes. We actually had to take a week back because of the storms. We were down in South Florida, so we had to get out of there. But yeah, don't worry about money. Worry about land. I think on Kofi underscore 42, what are we at, 68,500 people or something? On this one, we're at 30 something thousand people or whatever. Imagine if every person that was on there gave $5 a person. Right, we've been trying for a year. We're past our deadline. We were hoping to get it done, but they canceled us when we started. We were supposed to do a year of at least 30 families giving $100 a month, or $88 and some change a month, which would end up being $1,000 a month. But we didn't get that because we had to literally start over once we started that campaign. So they kicked us off TikTok and they kicked us off YouTube at the same time. So. But imagine, like, if literally we have all these people, if everybody on here really wanted to help, black, white, or otherwise, and wanted to just, or even people that said, I'm going to get rid of you, because, some people follow you just to be able to, like, say how bad you are. If you really wanted to even get rid of us, imagine everybody gave $5, $10, something like that. Imagine if it was even as much as, $20. One time, everybody gave $20, right? So that'd be almost about 100,000 people, right? 100,000 people give $20. You don't think that we can make sure that we can get some land and you wouldn't have to worry about the certain things, and you can grow your own food and do this and do that? But people ain't really worried about solutions anyways. We're repeating the same process. I mean, it really could be that simple. But people, like a lot of people will follow you just for the sake of saying, oh, I like this one video that you did, but you're not trying to cause change. Right? You know, people aren't really trying to cause change. We could have been done. And I'm not trying to get on anybody. I'm not trying to pressure anybody. I'm just saying in general, right? Like there's a lot of stuff. We told people grow your own food. Some people did, some people didn't. If we grew enough food, we could have been trading food, trading seed, trading a lot of different things. Like this thing is simple. It's more simple than it is. See, reparations, it starts with stuff like that. How you doing, Sister Beverly? Right? And you guys who gave you guys who couldn't give for whatever reason, you know why. I'm not trying to press anybody. I'm just saying, literally, like if it was really about change, like it's not that hard. Now we're doing much better. We're getting closer. We're probably gonna have to. I've been trying to avoid doing a down payment, but we're probably gonna have to do a down payment at some point, right? But we're not, instead of buying something full out. But if you really want it, you just get you buy the land, right? So if it was $20, that'd be, I guess it'd be 2 million, right? If I, I'm not always great at math, but I'm just saying, like, we could hit the mark somewhat easy, but the problem is that people look at it as being something that's so far, or we're so far removed from even thinking we can do it. Like we could at least, so at some point by the end of the year, prayerfully, there were some things that we were expecting to happen contract wise, and some things I'm doing personally where we were hoping to just be able to just take care of the rest of it ourselves as a family. We haven't really been able to, do it. We have a fundraiser. Actually, I got to get back on the fundraiser. We didn't have our meeting last week on Saturday. So we're going to have the meeting this Saturday, and we'll try to mention that again and what the next step is. But that's why we even started to do fundraiser, and some people are like, oh, fundraising, this and that. Reason we did fundraisers because at some point we got to, by any means necessary. Right. So if you guys are interested, just reach out to us. We have the stuff to reach out to us. We'd love to have the help. We're basically, we can't really grow anything. And well, there's two different places we're looking at, but either place we're looking at, we really can't, regardless of how south or north it is, we can't grow anything anyways until, the turn of the season. So, we can start looking at it again and hope that in this winter coming up, I know we're just getting into fall, but in this, or actually we haven't hit fall. Isn't fall October, the end of October or something, whatever it was. But, I know we haven't gotten to fall yet, but basically we're not really going to be able to grow anything too successful yet. But the first goal is, if we can get the land sometime this winter, when spring happens, we can sow seed, right? And there have been some people who've even said, hey, if you want, you can grow some stuff on this land or that land. And we went and visited those places and stuff like that. And we're looking at possibly trying to do that. But that's still, other people's property, just enough to be able to grow a little bit, but not a lot. Even though some of them have some pretty decent areas. But, we're looking at something at some point where we can turn whatever we're doing into, like we can have a place where we can go, we can have food, we can do these things or whatever. Dr. Umar Johnson said he was going to do it with the school. I guess he finally bought the school, but the school hasn't started yet still, I guess. But we're not looking at doing it just for school. We're looking at it for, community purposes. You said you have yet to meet a good person to work land with you. Okay, that's all right. But I'm just saying, so you guys can contact us if you're interested, not just through DMing, by the way, even though you can, but also through if you go on, if you're on YouTube, you can contact us with the information in the description box. If you're on TikTok, just look at the link tree and you'll be able to find ways to contact us on there. You can text us and email us, and both of them either come directly to myself or my wife. And we'll get in touch with you, or somebody else can get in touch with you, and we can start working together. Right. Because, and there's even some people where I've been kind of slow just because I didn't know if I trusted it or not. But, we're going to reach out to them too to see, if what they're saying is real about certain things. You said, can I talk about apprenticeships and their relation to slavery? I mean, I don't know what specifically, I guess, are you talking about? But, but I'm saying all this to say history repeats itself. History repeats itself, and we have to realize that we're dealing with the rinse, wash, repeat We're just going through the same thing. We're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, and then trying to figure out why we feel insane. Right? We're trying to figure out why we're doing the same things over and over again. I know somewhat. I know a few things about Mormonism, which is why I don't really deal with Mormonism. But I'm never. I don't know if I'm dealing with Mormonism today, but maybe we'll have time for that. But once again, history repeats. Right? How long do you think that Black women have been saying, "I don't feel secure"? History repeats. How long do you think that Black men have been saying, "I don't feel respected"? History repeats. Watch this. How long have Black men and Black women been pit against each other through somebody else's prism? History repeats. Yeah, but more people killed in World War One and Two, than a whole bunch of other wars that came before it. you know. All right. Even if we feel you said respect is earned, okay, right? But men secure that which respects them. A man will wash his car and take care of it and all that stuff. You know why? Because the car helps him get from point A to point B. And because the car doesn't submit to a man. It's not submission, it's submission. A man should always have a mission. Don't get with no man that don't have no mission. But the man will deal with the car because the car supports his mission. He dotes upon it. He loves it. He makes sure he put smell goods inside of it. He makes sure that he washes the outside. He makes sure he even compliments it when he's washing it. I didn't say there was never a time when Black men and Black women were unified. I didn't say that, 40 Griffin. I don't think I did. I said, do you know how long we've been having this conversation? Through somebody else's prism, right? But that's what I was saying earlier. We're trying to talk about racial equality. We don't even know what it is to be married. Not by somebody else's construct. See, this is the problem we have. People think I'm talking about marriage to somebody else's construct. What does your marriage look like? Before you walk down the aisle to get married, because that's something Queen Victoria did. Before you wanted to have white, because that's what they said purity looked like. Before you talked about you had to have a train because she had a train that was half a mile long. Before you were taught those things, what did your marriage look like? What did your vows look like? Always talking about, this is the first Black woman to do that, and the first Black man. When they did that back in Kemet thousands of years ago, what did that look like? When they did that in Yashta thousands of years ago, what did they look like? When they did that in Swaziland thousands of years ago, what did that look like? When they did that in Kush thousands of years ago, what did that look like? Do we even know? Do we even care to know? What was the mission back then? Not submission, submission. Not subwomanship, submission. Don't be no woman asking for security, but you won't make sure that you respect the mission. Don't be no man asking for respect, but you won't make sure you secure the one who's going to help you to reach the mission. Repeating the same thing over and over again. And by the way, it's not even the Star of David. Remember, there's no such thing as the Star of David in the Bible. You won't find it in the Apocrypha. You won't find it in the Chronicles of Noah, the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jasher. No such thing as the Star of David. It's the Star of Malak. And that's something in the Bible says, make sure that you're careful of. They call this certain deity, these other pagan people call this deity a king. They called him king. But that's not our king. Matter of fact, it started on there, the Rothschild family, the first person before he changed his name to Rothschild, he actually put that star, it was called a red star. That's why the Rothschild is actually talking about a red star or the child of the red star or whatever, but it was the star Malak that was on his door. Do I believe people of color can be racist? In countries where they have power, if you're talking about the word you're using, because the word racist just means somebody who's proficient at race, somebody who's proficient at competition, or if you want to go to the human race, somebody who's proficient at the human race, or even if you're proficient in your race, then you should be proficient as far as taking care of other human beings and treating them. Who created racism? Once again, racism is a competition. Who made racism about color? You got to go to the Pope and then look at other people. Doctrine of Discovery, Manifest Destiny, White Man's Burden, eugenics, Darwinism, List goes on and on, right? Racism wasn't originally about color. It was just about making sure that you weren't able to defeat other people, which means ultimately racism is about the 1% of the 1% of 1% of 1% having everybody else so messed up that they can't fight, that oppression. Right. Like here's the deal. You want to know something? If you really wanted to change, if people really wanted to change something, realize that money's not real. But we can't get enough people. You'd have to have a majority of people do this to change the system. If people realize that money's not real, everything would change overnight. Right. But you'd have to be willing to come out of the system. You'd have to be willing to say, we'll grow our own food, we'll forage, we'll find people who can forage, we'll support one another, we'll make sure that we all have a place to stay, we'll do what we have to do to survive. But we can't do that. We won't do that. We could do that. We haven't made the decision to do it. Right? Money is not real. Right? For example, if they gave you reparations, how much do you? And I'm not against it. I believe we deserve reparations. Here's the problem. I didn't even get to finish this because people were fighting so much earlier. Let me go back. They tell you that the United States of America is $30 trillion of debt. Why do you believe that? No, you got muted. I remember you specifically, even though I didn't mute you. I remember what you were saying, Adam. You were making it a point to say that I know nothing. I don't know anything about history. And how can I know? Because everything was washed, so nobody knows what happens. And my response to you, because you were muted, so you can still hear me, and you were only muted for 5 minutes. So while you're coming back now, that means you left and then came back. So if you had stayed stuck around, I said, why is it that you believe that because history has been messed with, I shouldn't talk about it because I don't know anything about it, but you can say because history's been messed with, you can tell me why I'm wrong about it. I remember why you got muted. I remember you. Right, but once again, do you believe, getting back to the see, every time I'm trying to get to this, people are trying to argue. Like, why do you believe that the United States of America is $30+ trillion in debt? Why do you believe that? Matter of fact, let me check the debt calculator real quick and make sure, or the debt clock, excuse me. Make sure I'm giving. Yeah, okay. So why do you believe it's coming up on $31 trillion in debt? Why do you believe that? Question. Why do you believe that America's $30 trillion coming up on $31 trillion in debt? How you doing, Minister Select Joseph? Right. And by the way, we're on from 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. So it's 9:46 Eastern. So, a lot of people are coming on and just being like, oh, this and that, blah, blah, whatever. It's like you missed a whole bunch. That's why we record these. You can actually go and see what we're talking about and even see what our belief system is, see what we talk about. We have all these different playlists too that you can go on there and look at on the YouTube channel, right? So a lot of people just come on with assumptions, right? But I get it. If you don't know anything about it, it's okay to come on and question and all those things. You should question. You should question everything, but don't question it just for the sake of questioning. Question it to see if it's in fact from the source that we say that it is, right? But peep game, you think that it's 31 going on $31 trillion in debt. I'm looking at it now, continuing to climb and climb and climb and climb and climb. Okay, $31 trillion in debt. That's what they tell you. Why do you believe that that's real? Because they told us, yeah. And we don't study equity. Even the book of Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3 tells you to study equity, but you don't even know what equity is. And there's a law of equity, right? If you're going to talk about substantive law, which comes from natural law, you got to talk about procedural law and remedial law. And you also got to talk about public and private law, which means you got to understand law of admiralty, common law, and law of equity. You have to. Now, watch this, though. You're not in debt because all money is supposedly supposed to be backed up by something. In the United States of America specifically, your money is supposed to be backed up by silver and gold. If it's not backed up by silver and gold, it's not real. Problem is, though, your money is not backed up by silver or gold, or it can be backed up by what? Bonds. Now, I just told you earlier about birth certificate. Your birth certificate is a bond, right? It's a stock rather with a bond around it. So they don't give you gold, right? Because they got rid of the gold standard, but the gold standard doesn't mean that what the money is supposed to be backed up by is not real. Your money's not real because it's not backed up by gold and silver. What makes your money real then? Because you think you're in debt, but you can't be in debt because just simple. Let's make this very sensical. Let's make this very sensical, right? Let's just use a certain type of sense. You ready? Because it ain't making dollars for you yet because it ain't making sense. So let's make this make sense for you, right? If I were to give you a loan for 20,000 and I gave you some ridiculous interest rate where you got to pay me 30,000 back or whatever, right? And you couldn't pay it back. I said, okay, no problem. But you come back to me, you say, I still need 20,000 more, right? So I give you, you think I would give you 20,000 more? Let's say I did though, because that's really crazy, right? But let's say I gave you 20,000 more, and then that's the same thing. I need 30,000 back. Now you're at least, because you're going to have penalties for not paying back the first 30,000, but now you're at least $60,000 in debt. You can't pay that again, and I give you 20,000. How many times do you think that's going to happen? How many times do you think I'm going to keep giving you money? How many times do you think I'm going to keep giving you money? Think about it. Hear what I'm saying? How many times do you think that I'm going to keep giving you money when you just keep going into debt? But you think that the whole world, some of y'all think the whole world, or China, or the Federal Reserve, or whomever, you think that all these people are going to keep giving money to America when they can't afford to pay it back? Right? This is what makes this is what makes America be allowed to keep printing out money, right? We can go into the bank system too, because the bank system is wild. We talk about that in sovereignty too. The banking system is wild, where they really, like, for every $100 that they give out on a loan or whatever, they only have to have $9 technically, because they're not giving you actual money. See, you don't even think about it when you go somewhere. You say, "Give me a loan for $1,000." All they have to have is 900. They don't have to give you not, and they don't even give you money. They just give you a piece of paper that says this represents whatever, right? Or they give you an email or whatever. Then you take that number or whatever, and you give it to a bank, another bank. The bank says, okay, cool, we'll take your fake money now, and thank you for paying us or whatever. And now you got to keep paying back with interest something, while the bank is paying nothing to another bank that accepted nothing. Right? So we can get in that. That's a whole other discussion, right? But let me keep it very simplistic, right? Because a lot of us, at least, are recognize the Federal Reserve, the 12, groups of it. By the way, you can tell that there's 12 types of parts of the Federal Reserve. If you look on your number, or if you look on all your money, if you start to, like, here's a little exercise for you, for those who like to save money, like to save fiat cash and keep some on you. Make sure that you save 12 of at least each type of dollar, 12 of each type of 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 50, 100. And what you'll find is you'll have certain, and I want you to look for the serial numbers, right? And the serial numbers are going to say, like, or they're going to start with, like, they're going to have something next to it. Rather, not the serial number, but you're going to see something that says, like, A1, right? And then they'll say B2 and C3 and D4 and E5 and F6 and G7 and H8 and I9 and J10 and K11 and L12, because there are 12 branches of the Federal Reserve, right? Your money has to be authorized by the Federal Reserve, right? And it's telling you which branch that it came from, A through L, 1 through 12. Okay. Now, when you get that money and you save it, even if you get ones, fives, tens, 20s, if you want to save it with 50s, save it with hundreds, whatever, right? But when you get that money, right, and you see that on there, what's happening is that the Federal Reserve is allowing the United States of America, because the Federal Reserve is not part of the United States of America. The Federal Reserve is allowing the United States of America to print out money coming from that Rothschild family, Ashkenazi people who are leading it. A lot of people don't know. You might not even know the terms that I'm using. Go look those terms up, right? But you have these 12 different branches of one family, of one group that controls. And this same group is the Bank of England. You think that the Bank of England is over England. No, the Bank of England is actually the same family that owns the Federal Reserve. Same thing. Okay. So go look that stuff up at your own leisure, right? But now here's the deal. the Federal Reserve keeps saying, we'll loan you more money. We'll give you more money. We'll give you more money. But there's no gold or silver. Matter of fact, the Federal Reserve told them to get rid of the gold standard, which meant that you had to have a certain amount of gold on lock to make sure that, hey, you can't print money unless you got gold for it. They got, was it Woodrow Wilson to be able to really get rid of it? But then Richard Nixon, they killed JFK when JFK said, we're going to go back to the gold standard. They killed JFK, and then the person he ran against, Richard Nixon, gets voted in. And what did he do? He put the 100% clamps on it and said, we're done with it. Richard Nixon was their boy, right? But because of that mafia influence and stuff, and it was so strong from JFK's family, remember where they come from, right? Bootlegging and stuff. So JFK's family had so much power. John Kennedy was able to get JFK to be president and almost got Robert Kennedy to be president too, remember? so they had all that power. He was able to get him in, and JFK was able to look good during that election stuff, and they couldn't really finesse it in the Electoral College to get it where Richard Nixon could be there. So Richard Nixon ends up coming back later on, and you see how crooked he was, right? I'm not a crook, which stood for I'm crooked as I don't know what, right? But look at when you look at all those things, you have to figure out, okay, well, there's no gold to back it up, there's no silver to back it up. What are the bonds? Right? Yeah, we kind of were sold that because a lot of people sold their gold and a lot of other things that happened too, right? 1933. I'll be forgetting the dates. 1933, 18. It'll come to me if we need it. But there are certain dates you can even look up certain things that happen, right? But here's what happened. What are the bonds? You are the bond. You are what backs up the stuff. Your birth certificate. Thank you. 1933 bankruptcy transferred to birth certificate. Thank you. Right? 1913, which by the way happened right before 1914. What happened in 1914? World War I. Right? We don't know these dates. We don't think about these things. But once again, you are the bond. See, watch this. They average out all these people who make all this money who's born, right? They average that out. They know what the average person is going to make. And do you know there's people so rich? Some of you might not ever see this much money in your life, but the average birth certificate, this is like 10 years ago, so it's probably way more now. But average birth certificate is at least $6 million. They figure that the average person will make $6 million in their lifetime. So even if you don't even make 600,000 in your lifetime, they're saying the average person is going to make 6 million. Bare minimum. So they're not selling gold, or they're not saying, hey, we'll back up whatever you give us. It can be backed up by gold. So we always got gold, because Federal Reserve at any time should be able to call in their debt, right? But the Federal Reserve, see, you think they're in debt. The Federal Reserve says that you, the people, are the capital. And that's why they started to ban abortion and stuff like that too. But also they banned abortion because, not enough people of a certain uh, group are being born, right? And you sign off on it. Now, that's why we're saying you can do stuff with your DS-11 to be able to become non-citizen national, right? And then you can use that birth certificate, and you can even write a letter to them at that point, including with your social security card, and write to both offices. Now, they won't get rid of them, but you can basically say, I want no benefits or privileges. You guys can keep those things. As a matter of fact, when we get the land, all you have to do to get rid of your social security card at that point, when you get land, is be part of an organization, got its own land, has written out its own bylaws, and make sure that they can take care of its elderly. If you can do that, you can give them your social security card and say you can keep the number and make as much money off it, because they're not because the number is attached to a fake you. So you can tell them you can keep the fake me. I'm gonna be the real me over here, and you can make money off it yourself. I don't want SSI, but you got to make sure that you're around people that can take care of you before you can give it up by law, because you signed away your right to do that. See, now why weren't you ever told that? I didn't tell you anything that you can't look up. Why weren't you told that on your money is literally telling you that it belongs to the Federal Reserve? And it tells you, why didn't they tell you that your money's supposed to be backed up by gold or silver, but there's no gold or silver left? Why didn't they tell you that there used to be a lot of Americans that had a bunch of gold, and they told them to go ahead and sell their gold? And then once they sold their gold for a certain amount, then they turned around and sold their gold, to other countries and other people for, 4 times what they bought it for. Why didn't they tell you those things? Repeating the same thing. See, once again, people are stuck on black, white. You said, why can't you use the social security number to buy goods? You can. You're just dealing with benefits or privileges. The only reason you get Social Security is because it's a benefit or privilege. Which means that once again, before we ask people to give up those benefits and privileges, we have to do what? Make ourselves great enough to take care of them. Right? I'm not asking for somebody, hey, you're in Social Security, come on with us. We ain't got our stuff together yet. I can't do that. But we need to build it up. And then once I can make sure bare minimum, you got a place to stay, you got a place to live, you're close enough to a hospital. We make sure that you got signal for people to get in touch with you. I can take care of your basic needs. We can transport you to different places, make sure you still have a great time. Same things they can do out there, right? We ain't gonna put you in a nursing home. We gonna take care of you, all these things. Once we can do those things ourselves, right, then we can go ahead and say, let's go ahead and do it. But that's why I said it starts with inward reparations. Or do you have a mindset to do that? Do you have a mindset to take care of your elderly? We starting to do what everybody else does. We put in our elderly in nursing homes. I get it if you literally legit don't have the knowledge or can't take care of somebody, or maybe you don't even have the patience to. If you don't have the patience to, maybe you shouldn't, right? But we are doing the same thing others are doing. But in order to have your own society, you got to take care of your own. You got to take care of your elderly. You got to take care of your babies. You got to take care of your husbands. You got to take care of your wives. You got to take care of yourselves. Where's the self accountability? Where's the marital accountability? Where's the accountability to teaching our children? Why is it that our children aren't learning this stuff? It blesses my heart when we travel and stuff, and I go and I meet people and their children show up, and they're little children sometimes, and they're like, wow, like I listened to you. It was nice to meet you and stuff. It's really cool to hear that, right? And I'm not saying just because, oh, look at me. I'm saying that because they're learning. We didn't do that. We didn't learn about ourselves. I praise Yah that at least my father worked 2.5 jobs, by the way, but at least he had enough sense, even though I wasn't supposed to listen to any of his stuff, but he had enough sense to at least record everything. And he had recordings of everybody from back in the day. He had CDs I could listen to of not just only music, but speeches and all these different things or whatever. So even though I wasn't allowed to listen to it, I learned a whole bunch of stuff listening to his library. Right? I listened to his library. And what do you have to say to me? I'm sorry, Tool Army. I missed what you have to say. What are the tools that you're using against me? Do you call yourself Army, by the way, because you served? Thank you for your service. I served as well, but that probably doesn't matter. But what is it that you're saying? All you did was disagree, and you got blocked. This and this and stuff. You didn't get blocked. If you were blocked to Army, you wouldn't be able to come back. Blocked means you can't come back ever. But you were probably muted, and probably muted because you're coming in here doing all this stuff or whatever. Once again, like whatever you're saying, just come on and actually speak. But hello to you. If that's the way you say hello, I can already see there's vibes in there or whatever as to why somebody might have muted you yesterday. I didn't mute you, by the way. Right? I very rarely mute or block anybody. Very rare. Because I have great friends and family that help us out with those things. You're muted, that's semantics. Okay, what is your point that you were trying to make? We can stop everything to make sure that we take care of you, because we should show love one to another, right? So how can I show love to you? By listening to your point that you're going to execute and elocute in a majestic fashion. I mean that. I'm all ears. Let's go. Teach or tell me why what I'm teaching is wrong or whatever. Let's go. You said you don't know what the live is about today. You were genuinely interested in it yesterday. Okay, so so you've come on to tell me why you're not interested, or we're talking about history repeats itself. But okay, now that you're on today to tell me that you were messed up, was that it was that all? I mean, I don't want to be offensive. Is that all that you wanted to say? No, I don't believe it's a waste of time. I treat you with respect. I treated you with respect yesterday, more than likely, because you're telling me that you got muted and I didn't mute you, but you feel disrespected by me. So I want to make sure, especially if you're a man. As man, number one need is respect. I respect you. So let's go. And if you're a woman, I don't know what you are, male or female. If you're a woman, then as a woman, your number one need is security. I don't want you to feel insecure in here and that we're coming at you. So if there's anything I can do to speak to help you out with that, let's go. Yeah, that's true. But even if somebody doesn't give you respect, my respect doesn't come from the amount of respect that somebody gives. You know what I'm saying? But I feel you. Anyways, okay. So if you have something, please feel free to let it be known, right? But history is repeating itself. Okay, time is precious, sure, right? And if this isn't going to work out for you in your time, that's why we record these on the YouTube channel. You can feel free to just listen to the YouTube channel. That way, you can fast forward past these parts, right? But you know, we have to realize that not only is time precious, even this stuff right here. So this is sowing seed. Once again, we're missing like some of these things. Like we have to realize once again, like we as a people, we as a diaspora, we as like-minded people, wherever route you want to go, like we all have a sickness. The system causes sickness, right? Okay, well, if it's that history keeps repeating itself, then, or is it that we keep making the same mistakes? Well, if history repeats itself, and you can look at it either way. If history repeats itself, that causes us to make the same mistakes, or if we make the same mistakes, then we're repeating history. You know, I mean, you know, either way, at some point, and that's what I'm saying. We need to deal with self. I'm not worried about everybody else or the government or whoever you say or the victors or whatever you want to call yourself, Democrats, Republicans, the educated, the elitist, the person who's real, whatever. Like my standard is greater than myself. And the standard for my community has to be greater than myself, because if I'm saying everybody live up to my standard, we ain't gonna do nothing, because my standard is only mine. Right. But there has to be a standard that's greater than us. Much respect to you too, Smack. Appreciate it. Right. But I'm just saying, like we're doing this wild thing. And thank you, C Taylor. I apologize, I missed that. But we have to get to a position and a place to where we're dealing with trauma. Right. I've seen too many trauma victims in the military. I've seen too many trauma victims on the street being homeless. I've seen too many trauma victims doing one-on-one coaching and life coaching and marital coaching. I've seen too many trauma victims looking in the mirror, right? To where I'm going to dismiss trauma and act like we're going to move on without dealing with the trauma. See, now that we've gone through, usually it takes a long time for us to get to a place where we can sit, but let's sit in this a little bit. Let's talk solution-oriented message more, right? Thank you, Henry. Appreciate you. All right, let's talk about this. Like, there's a trauma if a person has, if you don't deal with that girl is stuck. See, you're thinking that you're seeing a 50-year-old man wilding out, but that's a 5-year-old boy that's still trying to deal with something in the 50-year-old man. You think you're dealing with a 50-year-old woman that's wilding out, but that's a 5-year-old girl in there. The king is still trying to figure out what happened when he was a boy. The queen is trying to figure out what happened when she was a girl. Now, make that exponential and deal with the people. And you think that you're not, the reason why we're wilding out in 2022 has nothing to do with what happened in 1776, in 1815, in 1858, in 1860, in 1865, in 1898, in 1914, in 1913, in 1921, in 1909. Like you don't think that there's any. You see what I'm saying? There's not any correlation that we're having a problem. We got to figure out this traumatic experience. Like people, watch this. Just because because trauma continues, and the problem is that you might not even know why the trauma exists, but you're still dealing with trauma. For example, this is something that happens a lot in our diaspora, right? Something that still happens with our diaspora, right? This is still stuff that happens in our diaspora today. There's little Johnny, right? And there's little Keyshawn. So it sounds like a population level intelligence to you. Okay, sure. Well, first of all, intelligence means information, intel, right? Like when I went to war, they made sure they gave us intel first, right? So a lot of people are missing intel. So why not give it to them versus just say that they don't have it? Okay, so there's little Johnny, and I forgot what I said, little Keyshawn. Little Johnny's mother is there to watch an award show, and little Keyshawn's mother is there to watch the same. Little Johnny's mother and little Keyshawn's mother are having a conversation, and everything seems to be fine. Everything seems to be great. They're both there, and little Keyshawn's mother says to little Johnny's mother, "Man, look at little Johnny up there getting an award now and all that great stuff. Man, little Johnny is excellent." Little John, you know what little Johnny's mother says? She says, "Thank you. I appreciate that." And then, and then she looks up and she says, "Wait a minute. Little Keyshawn, he's doing greater than little Johnny. Like little Johnny's excellent and everything, but little Keyshawn, he's got #1 in the class. He's going to be this. He's going to be that. He's going to go on and do great things." You know what little Keyshawn's mother's response is a lot of times? Little Keyshawn's mother will usually turn and say, "Shh, child, please. I tell you what, man, when it come to him and what I got to do at home with him and this and that and all these other things, hey, he don't be doing this and he don't be doing that." And little Johnny's mother just kind of like, "Oh, okay." She laughs, but she laughs nervously, like, "Oh, okay," because she tried to say that little Keyshawn is actually doing really well, but little Keyshawn's mother is going to bring him down. Now, why do you think that happens? Why do you think that happens? We're dealing with trauma now. See, people don't like to talk about it. That's why we tell you even read books like Dr. Joy DeGroy, PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, things of that nature. Why do you think that happens? Right? Why do you think that happens? Maybe we'll get to Biden, maybe we won't, but honestly, I don't care about Biden. Biden ain't doing nothing to me. Right? He ain't doing nothing for me or to me. I'm separate from that. But maybe we'll get to it. Just give me a second, right? Why do you think that little Keyshawn's mama does different than little Johnny's mother? Right? Separation anxiety, right? Little Keyshawn's mother came from a mother that did the same thing to her and her brothers, and a grandmother did the same all the way back to slavery. Now, why did they do it in slave times? In slave times, you would denounce what little Keyshawn was doing, because the slave master might come out and be like, "Wow." And by the way, he wouldn't have been called little Keyshawn, because he would have had to been called little Johnny, because he would have had to been called a white name, right? But she's gonna lower his status, because the master would be like, "Wow, little Keyshawn kind of smart." And when she hears that, she knows smart people can be sold. Smart people might be too smart and get whipped, or they might be killed, right? So she's worried about her family. And so the first thing she does to the slave master, "Oh no, sir, a little Keyshawn, he's stupid, he dumb, he's slow, sir. No, sir. Ain't that right? Ain't that right, Keyshawn?" And Keyshawn, being a little child who's smart, has it then his code switch. Instead of saying, "Oh yeah, oh no, I am very articulate and smart," he says, he looks at his mom. He's, "Oh yes, master. Yeah, yeah, master. I stupid. I's dumb." And then what'll happen to little Keyshawn later is, once the master leaves, then she gonna pop little Keyshawn and say, "Be careful what you're doing for a master. You making us look bad." He say, but mama, I'm just I'm just being smart. I thought that was good. Don't nobody want no smart children. You just need to be around. They gonna you stupid boy, you dumb." And she'll talk down to him, trying not to cry while talking down to him, because she wants him to realize that she's not telling him that, "Hey, I don't want you to go." She just wants him to think he's stupid, he's dumb. She's trying to keep him controlled. Now, that same trauma, her daughter saw her do to the little Keyshawn. So now she has her own little Keyshawn. She does it to him. And then she has a daughter who does it to that little Keyshawn, and has a daughter that does that, and daughter that does that. So now we're doing the same thing in 2022. Where little Keyshawn now, you don't even have to do that. It's not even a thing of oppression, but there's something that came from oppression that you're still holding on to. I'm a clown. Fine. Once again, go read some books from people that actually write on the subject matter and know what they're talking about. Right? Dr. Joy DeGroy, since you won't listen to me. Right? You don't like this professor, go listen to a professor that's greater than me. Right? And read her book, Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and actually find out how these things go together from somebody who actually, does psychology. If you don't respect the psychology I learned in school, then maybe you'll respect somebody who writes psychology that people use around the world. Or get off this live, go find whatever live she's going to do, and call her a clown. Or, matter of fact, if you actually are willing to do it, go look for her, find her in her face, and call her a clown, and make sure that you demean our sister some more. Right? But that's what I'm saying. And somebody literally just gave you what you say by your science should be articulated and has written results. And I gave you the place to look for the written results. And the first thing that we do against each other, say, "I'm gonna call you a clown." That's post-traumatic. Something in that person's childhood. is bringing up something that says, I've got to shut you down. See, in that example, I was Keyshawn. I was giving contextual facts. And that person had to say, man, you stupid, you dumb, you slow. Right? It runs deep. That person just gave you a practical example. How you doing, man? I wish y'all would just let go. For Christ's sake, it was 200 years ago. You missed the whole point. And you haven't been on here long enough to listen. So maybe you should listen up to be able to learn what's being said. Because we legit have been talking about the fact that if they do it to one people, they do it to everybody else. You don't think that there's a boy in a trailer park somewhere where his mom is telling him he dumb too? I wish you would care about what's happened to people and how they've been messed up for hundreds of years rather than telling them to shut up. That's my wish, but it's just my wish. I can't force you to do anything. But man, it would be nice if you would listen to somebody and realize that other people go through things, and it doesn't matter what color they are. But I just gave a practical example of how it works. And your first thing was to say, get over it. It happened 200 years ago. I literally just said that people can be holding on to things that happened 200 years ago, and we need to discuss it so we can let go of it. And your first response is shut up and let it go. You can't hear because you're mentally enslaved, no matter if it's under this badge or that badge, if it's under the slave patrol badge or it's under the modern police officer badge, if it's under the thing where it was Carl Linnaeus, or you want to call it an IQ test now, you're under the same thing. Thank you, Detail, and I appreciate it. But a lot of people aren't worried about listening to the facts. That's the problem. They don't even want to listen to the context. I'm not giving opinion. I'm very strict on that. I try my best. It's very rare I say I think or my opinion is. I'm not here to opine. I'm here to give contextual facts. And people are here to just dismiss whatever it's going to be. That's all it is. But you know why people get dismissive? You know why people get dismissive? Real talk. Not just because because they don't have ears to hear as well. But people get dismissive because they don't want. Because watch this, like they want to dismiss what they missed. If I miss something, what does that mean? See, it's worse to be dismissive. If I miss something, right? What does that mean? I missed it, right? If I dismiss it, what am I doing? I'm disrespectfully missing it. I don't even have enough mindset to respect you enough to even catch what you're saying at all, right? I'm calling you a barbarian. What does the word barbarian even mean? Barbarian were people that didn't speak like Romans. People that are very romantic in their mindset, and they romanticize certain things. They call everybody else barbarians. Why? Because Roman people call people. They said if you didn't talk like them, like we say blah blah blah. They said if you don't talk like us, it's bar 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 bar. There they go again, bar 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 bar. So they think you're a barbarian because you don't live like them and operating from an emotional place. And since your emotions aren't the same as their emotions, then you're a barbarian. Blah 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 blah. Bar 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 bar. Right? But we fancy ourselves to be greater than barbarians, and they don't like it that we can talk about things. And by the way, I'm not using a bunch of well, y'all know this and that or whatever and bump that. You know what I'm saying? No cap. I ain't capping this and blah blah whatever. And by the way, that should be fine for us to hear anyway. Right. However, I'm speaking articulately in a manner that for some of them, I'm doing better at articulating my point than they are. And I'm treating them as a human being. So I'm even following their rules to be able to show the things that they would normally in a classroom, if a person that they respected would dictate, with great diction, what I'm dictating, they would literally say, I like that. Even if I disagree, I like your presentation. Instead, their goal is to what? Shut up. Why? Why do I have to shut up? Why is it that you're telling me to shut up, but the person that you would respect that would say the same thing, you'd be okay with it? Why is it that I can speak with the same articulation as a Jordan Peterson, you would lift him up, but a Kofi Ofori says it and you tear him down? Why is it that Trump or Biden can't articulate what I'm articulating, but you would lift them up, but when I say it, you say, shut up and go somewhere? You have to ask yourself, what's the mindset of that? What's the trauma? You who say you don't see color seem to be very colorful in how you treat me. So that's the problem. What we don't understand, we say it's dumb or stupid. Yeah. And I still haven't disrespected you. Matter of fact, all these people coming from yesterday. Oh man, you muted me yesterday. You muted me yesterday. First of all, are you talking about from Kofi_42? Because we weren't even on this channel yesterday. But okay, I guess there was some point where you got muted. And now it's like, oh, you muted me. 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 I'm not even muting anybody. The people that are muting you are people who are trying to make sure that you are respectful. And they even give out warnings. I see it in the chat all the time. Talking about, please be respectful. Please don't say this. All right, articulate your position, but understand this word means da da da, blah blah. And they basically kind of tell them, not all the time, right? We're not 100% successful. I'm gonna act like we never make mistakes, but let's not act like we're 90%, 95% just banishing people because we don't like their name, or because that they're always articulating something correctly, or because they're asking a question straight up. But it's because of what? It's because your mind has been enslaved, and it's history repeating. And ultimately, a lot of times, somebody who is not trying to be in our culture or whatever, I'm not really concerned about them. It's always interesting that it's the people who are claimed to be part of our culture who do this to each other. What you say? You said ultimately it goes back to violence, which was the birth of policing, the only way to protect the lie. I mean, there's facts there. Said many can't relate until after a storm, when they see this world is not what they thought. It's okay to listen. I hear you on that. And that's something else too. A lot of times, because of the colonized mindset, a lot of us are like, well, it didn't happen to me yet, so it's not relevant. But that shows your heart. That's all that shows. Oh, wow. Somebody said now they see how America mutes us. I mean, that sounds like a whole discussion we can have within itself. You don't like being muted, but you mute us. They don't like it when we're immutable, so to speak. I know I just used that word wrong. Right? Doesn't matter what people think. He is proven correct through history. Yeah, his story says something and our story says something else. So now we got to figure out who's correct or whose story we prefer to believe. And that's really what it comes down to. Like, if we really want to be honest, whose story do you prefer to believe? Who shall believe our report? Maybe you won't. That's okay. But it's reports. You reported somewhere, and I'm simply going somewhere else and reporting what was ported. Who shall believe our report? Is it for you to believe? Maybe, maybe not. Not worried about it. I'm not here to try and get everybody to believe what I'm saying. All right. I'm trying to make sure that I can't save the world. I'm not here to save the world. I'm not savior of the world. Those that believe this report, okay, we got some tools to help you. And if you'd like to help your community, you can do so as well. You said, no, you're right. Actual historical record of events and scenarios you're talking about. Oh, no, I wasn't disagreeing with you. Right. I know you weren't here for this, but what was it? 2 days ago, we literally talked about agree with your adversary quickly. Find something to agree on. I'm giving things we can agree on. Or poch en français is also known, or poch en français is known as to carry. Thanks, babe. Also can be known as a doorway. Who shall believe that report? We're just reopening something. Hey, I've been ported here, and there's some stuff that I'm carrying over, some information I'm carrying to you, and I'm trying to report it. I'm trying to open this door so you can see what's going on. And now you choose if you want to go ahead and go through the same thing or not. That's all we're doing. That sometimes his story isn't what someone wants to hear, so they erase it. Yeah, well, that's true. A lot of people try to erase things that are uncomfortable, right? But it's like energy. It's like a buildup. A lot of brothers do this. A lot of men do this in general, where we won't talk about something. We're just trying to have peace. Just trying to have peace, but we really need to talk about it. But we're just trying to have peace, and then eventually we blow up. Everybody's like, "Where did that come from?" Well, that brother been feeling like that for a really, really long time. But he finally opened up about it. Boom. And that's what happens a lot of times when we have this stuff. you know, and rather than us keep exploding, see, that's what happens with a lot of us. We exploding. You said Jackson, Mississippi has no water and no one can, anyone cares. I mean, yeah, we care. In all honesty, I didn't know. I mean, I knew Mississippi has problems with water, and I knew that they were going to have problems in general. If people are stealing, millions of dollars from people who need food, then you're going to have a whole bunch of problems when it comes to water. I mean, so yeah. And how you doing, Buck? How you doing? So just answer their own questions. you know, these are the things that we have to realize and recognize. We're not willing to have that type of conversation, though. They're dying as we speak. Yeah. There's people that are dying without food right now as we speak. There's other people dying without water as we speak. There's people that haven't had clean water in Flint as we speak for years. Yeah. And nobody wants to talk about it. You're absolutely right. Once again, voice for the voiceless, speaking the unspoken. Yeah. Once again, if reparations is your only hope, like I said, I support the movement. I'm just not looking for somebody who hasn't given you something for how many years you've been waiting for it? 100 plus years, 100 and when they take it away from you, the little bit time you had, 140, 150 years, whatever it was. I'm not looking for that person. Maybe, no, even less than that or more than that. Excuse me. Let's see, 18. Okay, yeah. So so on. I'm sorry. I got to do, yeah, it's about 150, 160 years, somewhere in there. You said reparations is garbage? No, reparation is old. If reparation is garbage, stop giving it to the Japanese. If reparation is garbage, stop giving it to former families of slave owners, like Lincoln started. If reparations is garbage, stop giving it to the modern Israelites. If reparation is garbage, stop giving people tax returns. Tax returns, I know you can fight me a little bit on that, but the other ones, you know what I'm talking about, right? However, that's why I said it's inward reparations. I believe that it's a garbage mindset. I'm not even saying garbage mindset. It's correct to think you deserve something that you should receive, right? But the government ain't gonna give it to you. I know that ain't proper English. However, that is proper, correct? Yeah, I mean, well, they do more than just the supporting Russian Ukrainians or Ukrainians. There's more people being supported than that at all times. I get you. I get you. Right? I don't support them. At least support the movement. If I saw one that needed food or something, I would not feed them because I'm not going to fall into the same mindset of the oppressor. I'm not. We talked about this it's recently too. More than a conqueror. I'm not worried about conquering this a wicked system. I'm more than that. Yeah, it's under the guise of foreign aid, but it's still reparations. Like the Ukraine, America owes Ukraine money anyways. But the interesting thing about it, see, I can see why people conflate certain things and go certain ways. The interesting thing about that whole thing, really, that sticks out more than anything else, is that you had Africans in Ukraine and Ukrainians or whatever, and they made sure that they even flew some of the Africans to America, but the Africans had to be sent and shipped right over to Africa, but the Ukrainians got to stay in America. So we got stuff for foreign aid, and that's why my wife, if you want to support what she does with Changing Lives Initiative.org, that's initiative at the end without an E, but Changing Lives Initiative.org, and support what she does. That's why she makes sure that people bare minimum got at least clothes, coats, food. We got people over here that can't eat, making sure people got water, tea. People volunteer a lot of stuff, and we're able to give it to the community. I think October 22nd is the first date that we got set up now. But those are things that, yeah, we should make sure that we're involved in. Like, because the cities that we're going to go to, they don't do that for their people. They'll watch their people freeze in the street. I'm somebody who almost froze in the street in Chicago, had to try and come all the way over to DC, and then almost froze in the street over there. Or first it was, what is that? Not Great Lakes, wherever oh gosh, what is the name of that city where the Great Lakes? Yeah, Great Lakes in Illinois. Then almost froze in Chicago. Then almost froze in DC, and it seemed like I was probably going to die. Was somebody in a van saw me and brought me over to a place where I was able to stay called Adams Place over there, a shelter over in Washington D.C., which wasn't even a great place, but it was the best place you could get off the street. I've seen. I haven't even remembered this for years. I must have blocked this out. I've seen people froze and dead in wintertime. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's yeah, it's messed up. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they're gonna let that happen on their watch all the time, anyways, if they literally down south were locking people up to make sure that when they were getting ready to host different events going on and stuff, that they locked them up and put homeless people in prison. Like, that's what I'm saying. It comes to a place of the heart. Like, you gotta realize and recognize. They were letting people. Remember when it was snowing in Texas? People were out there dying. Now, truth be told, they weren't really prepared for that. And really, I don't give them as much grief for that, but they didn't even make an attempt to save some of the people that were out there, right? Like, but there were people that died out there, were frozen in the snow. They posted it on social media for you to be able to see, even when the news wouldn't put it on there for you. Like, there's a lot of people out there, and they don't care. I've seen people with mental health issues that I knew, that I talked to. There's a guy who's like my little brother. Shout out to Justin. He's like my little brother, and he had told me before stuff started happening, he was dealing with mental issues. He was uh, going to a college, and Howard University, and we both ended up on the street same time. Very, uh, very eloquent brother. Um, took very care of himself, hygiene, all that stuff, very hygienic. He didn't necessarily even believe in what I believed in, but he supported it because he was like, even when we were homeless, he was like walking around with me everywhere. He was telling me, teaching me things. He was like, hey, let's get this together. We started giving homeless people stuff while we were on the street. We started telling them where they could go to eat and where they can go to stay and get out of the cold and all these different things, right? Um, and I watched him slowly deteriorate mentally. Same history repeating itself. His father had committed, the S word, and he walked in and saw his father's body, you know, moving around, and he carried it with him. He got in a place to where he was supposed to be supported financially, and they messed up on his financial aid, and so he ended up on the street. He trying to be a tough man, decides I'm gonna try to make it through and this and that. I'm gonna push through, and I'm gonna I'm gonna be a man about this and that. I was like, well, go talk to your mom. This and that. He's like, yeah, my mom and I, we beef and blah blah. I'm like, bro, go talk to your mom and be somebody. You need to be around them. If your mom saw that happen to her husband, y'all need to heal together and this and that or whatever. But he tried to tough it out, so it was like kind of took him under my wing. So I thought I was doing decent, but then he just stopped talking. You know what I'm saying? Like, I watched him stop talking. Some of these people who y'all look at and think they're crazy and stuff. I watched this man, like great man, who was able to talk about so many different things, wanted to help people, had a heart for it, and was kind of like, hey, I'm not even into what you're doing, but hey, I like what you believe, but I like what you're doing. I literally watched him day by day as I would ask him questions and stuff, him kind of just like as if I wasn't even there talking to him, right? And then one day he just stopped talking. Then all of a sudden, a lot of brothers and I, we checked on each other, and a lot of brothers, we couldn't find him for days, wasn't showing up anymore to the shelter. And so I started getting worried. I was hoping nothing happened to him or whatever. And then one day I see him from far away, and he muttering something to himself. I call over. I'm like, "Hey, Justin." He doesn't even respond. I walk up to him. I'm like, "Hey, Justin." He looks at me, but he doesn't even respond. He's talking to himself now. He went from speaking out, helping this and that, to not talking at all, to disappearing, to now he's just talking to himself. I see him a few weeks later, and he got holes in his jeans. He's not changing his clothes. He's not bathing. His hair, and look, I'm one to talk. I got free growth, right? But his hair is like obviously not even being washed, touched, anything anymore, right? And the system failed him, and I failed. I don't know. I won't blame. I won't blame myself. I didn't fail him, but we don't have anything set up for people like that. You know what I'm saying? And his history repeats itself. Shout out to Justin, wherever you are. But his history repeats itself. And that's all I'm saying is, like, at the end of the day, like, the government, the best they could do is tell us to go to the Roman Catholic Church, and the Roman Catholic Church had a shelter. But before that, Howard University was supposed to make sure that he had financial aid, and they dropped the ball. Before that, his father was trying his best to take care of his family. There was a lot of pressure on him. He didn't have an outlet. He was dealing with trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's tons of other things that I see. There's people that fall off because of trauma they're going through. There's and all the stuff. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's deeper than what we're even in these sessions we have. We're very superficial because we're arguing the superficial. And prayerfully, Justin got himself together. I don't know. I haven't seen him in years. Every time I go back to the area, I sometimes, while my family is doing something, they're going somewhere. Sometimes I'll be looking around, and they probably think I'm disinterested. Part of me be like, I'm looking for him. He was like he still is like a little brother. And it's not about the superficial stuff. Like, the system failed us, and we didn't have anything for him to go into. Like, imagine if that brother who needed help could have been around, not could have been like, "Hey, Justin, you know what? I know you can't do that at your school. We got SOC University. Take some classes there. Take them for free." At least he could have had an outlet. It's the things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what's missing, is we're arguing over the superficial, and we need to have something outside of the system. The system tears people up, man. I'm not sure if he did or not. So I appreciate the thing. I'm just saying, I appreciate it. I know I made it sound like he passed, possibly because I'm afraid he did, but you keep out hope, and you hope that one day you run into him again and things are better. And even if I ran into him in the same situation he was in, I would still just be excited to see him. And that's the part that I'm trying to get people to see, is like, people are like, "Man, I need this, or I'm not going to help unless this person doing it." Like, literally, if I saw him in the same position where he hadn't taken a bath in years, and he was still talking to himself, and he still didn't look at me, I would still, run. I'd be careful because I respect his space. But if I ran up on him and he reached out to give me a hug, I would still hug that man. You know what I'm saying? And people lack like humanity. You know what I'm saying? Like, you lack the humanity, right? Where your brother, your sister, I don't care what their situation is, man. Like, they need they need something outside the system. We have the systemic mindset that somebody systematically dropped in there that says, like, because somebody looks different or whatever, or because somebody isn't meeting up to your standards, or because of that, no, like, love them. You know what I'm saying? Like, show love to that person. I tell you, it was one of the most demeaning things that ever happened to me was when I was speaking, and I was speaking at Martin Luther King Jr. Library, something that for me was like a big deal, because I always I would see these different events. I was like, one day I'm going to speak there. And I wasn't even supposed to be the speaker, but I got to stand up with a microphone and I went back and forth and I was able to articulate certain things. And the people were like, wow, astounding, right? I was homeless. Nobody knew I didn't look homeless. I wasn't wearing homeless or whatever, but I was, and I needed help. So we had this whole group. And there was this girl, I guess she was digging on me. I didn't really care like that, but like I was trying to be nice and stuff. And she was even being flirtatious and everything. And guess what I asked? I asked the same person who saw all this stuff up in me, right? I just simply asked, "Can I use your phone?" She said, "You use my phone?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm homeless. Um, I don't have a phone right now. I'm waiting for my next gig. And once I finish playing there, then I'll be able to cash my check and buy another phone. But until then, I need to make a call to somebody real quick and stuff like that." All of a sudden, oh, well, I can't let you use my phone, blah, blah. And she stuck up nose at me, all this stuff. And from that point on, everybody that was there, it's like she went and told everybody I was homeless. From that point, this person that was somebody who you could listen to and learn from and you respected. And I guess she was even digging on me for a little bit. Now all of a sudden it's like I got the plague, right? And all I needed was a phone. Like she could have put it on speaker. I've had people that are homeless use my phone and I put it on speaker. She could have put it on speaker. I didn't have to touch the phone. I didn't even have to touch the phone. Praise Yah, I was able to go to that same library. And since I helped out in the library and helped with people that were handicapped with different stuff, they allowed me to be able to use their phone. And I was able to get whatever business, I forget what business I needed to get done. But it was one of the worst feelings in the world, right? And that's the system that we live in. That's why you got to come out of it. And we can't keep repeating the same thing. Those same people that were like, man, you got a lot to talk to, speak it, brother, snapping their fingers, doing all that, right? But then I need a phone and it's classism showed up. You locked up in the mind. Fine, there's police officers locking us up. Sure. You locked up in the mind first. That's tough. You had a family member want to go with you. You had to work and didn't take him an hour later. He was killed. You blamed yourself for years. Yeah, and it's not our fault, and it's not your fault. Even in that, I found myself blaming myself, trying to condemn myself. But yeah, that's really tough because you even, I guess you had to even deal with the body, But it's not your fault, but it's that system, you know. But imagine he was in a place to where you could have trusted that everything would have been fine. Like that's what we need. I appreciate that short circuit. Um, I really appreciate that, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's the system we're in. And that's what I'm trying to talk about. People talking about all this other stuff. I'm talking about the lockdown of the mind, where you're the one now, the slave patrolman, right? Like I remember when I've told this story before. I needed to be able to get diapers for somebody. I couldn't afford it, and so I had to panhandle. First time in my life, I think the only time in my life, because I was so distraught after I did it. What happened to me, I never did it again. But I had to panhandle. I had to sit there and say, hey, I need diapers. Can somebody help me? I can't afford it, and everybody just walked past me like I was nothing. People turn their nose up and stuff. But you know what immediately happened? I was convicted. I started thinking to myself, did I ever do that to anybody else? I started thinking to myself, like, so there's times where you're led not to give. You should give when you're led to give. I'm not saying just give just because. But I'm just saying, like, have you ever thought about that? Where like, what do you have to give? Like, have you ever thought, like, is there somebody you felt it in your heart you were supposed to give, but because you thought that you were better than them or whatever, or maybe you didn't even feel it in your heart to give because your reasoning was they're gonna do this, but they're gonna do that with it. Like, I don't care if there's been people that show up when we give out clothes that smell like straight urine, right? There's people that we get, they smell like straight urine. Okay, fine. Hey, they're gonna smell like urine. All you're gonna have to deal with it, but they need to go ahead and do those things. They're gonna need to go ahead and get some clothes. It is what it is, right? Like we have to give. You know what I'm saying? And that's part of the system too. The system has you thinking that you're not supposed to help your brother. Y'all ain't but 1, 2 generations removed from where people used to go next door. Some of y'all grew up in this, where you went next door to make sure that somebody had food. They moved into the neighborhood, you knew they weren't eating. So and so would have you knock on the door as a child, and they open it up, and they'd be like, Mama said that she made this for y'all, and it'd be a whole spread for them too. And y'all ain't even had no money. You ain't even knew, as far as you knew, you weren't gonna be able to eat tomorrow. It didn't matter. If we eating, they eating. Yeah, I'm not saying give whenever. I'm just saying that used to be something in your community. It was mandatory. You know how now people knock on each other's door because they try to be nosy when you move into the neighborhood. It used to be mandatory. Hey, I'm just letting you know it's nice to meet you. This and that, anything that you need. And when that showed up, anything that you need, we got you. Like that used to be mandatory. Right? There used to be people that would have like cakes and stuff in their house made specifically because, and not just black folk, a lot of folk, Italian people used to do, a lot of people used to do it, right? In New York, even in the North. And you would have it to where like somebody would have food, like dessert, where nobody was supposed to touch this. This was just in case we had company, right? Just in case we had company. That's what we were supposed to do. You know what I'm saying? Like there was stuff, hey, don't touch, hey, this like don't go in the living room. You only go in the living room when we have company. You know? Like there used to be a thing of we expected people to come over, right? And then of course, I got a little cityfied and I forgot some of those things and we stopped doing some of that. But yeah, like if we go over certain people's homes in my family, it's guaranteed that you ain't leaving without, like, if you go in there, you better not eat before you go. Because it's gonna be disrespectful if you don't get full over there off of what they made, right? Like these are things that are supposed to be. It was guaranteed that if you were a husband who put in, that you were going to be showing respect when you got home. Certain things had to be in place, not because you demand, but because your mission is to take care of the family. And you'd be guaranteed there's certain things as a wife, financially bare minimum, that you weren't going to worry about ever. Why? Because you were going to be made to feel secure. It was guaranteed, but somebody locked up our mindset. And really, for the most part, if you were looking for a date when it actually happened, we don't have to go hundreds of years ago like people accuse us of. 1980s, crack epidemic, locked up your mind. They didn't put crack everywhere. It eventually went to other people and stuff like that. But they didn't start off with it being everywhere. Crack started right in the big cities. I've watched videos. I would put it up, but I don't know if it would get us a strike on YouTube. But I watched videos. Matter of fact, I don't know. Maybe I'll see if I can find it and play it. But I've watched interviews with people who talked about how they wasn't it a black guy worked at NASA and did an interview where he was talking about how he loved crack and how he wasn't give it up for anything. Oh, thank you, Olga. Appreciate you. How you doing today? Right? Like like that thing it was monstrous, murderous, and it was done by the president of the United States. He's the one that sanctioned it. You know what I'm saying? And you're talking about that's the leader of the free world. Who is he leading? Who is he leading to freedom? Yeah, broke the whole family. That's when you had little boy talking about I'm the man of the house and stuff like that. Kind of sort of started in the 70s, but for real, that's when you started having people talk about that because all the men got locked up. And little boys were out there selling crack to take care of their mama and stuff. So they were like, yeah, I am the man of the house. You had 13-year-old boy, you know, wearing diamond necklaces and stuff like that. Or not diamonds back then, I guess it was really more gold. Right? Having the gold chain and everything. Out there on the block. You had little children out there telling grown men that you better go ahead and make sure that you get me my money. That was done by the government. But you're going to tell me that same government I'm supposed to listen to now? History repeats. Ain't nothing new. History repeating itself. History repeated itself. dealing with the same thing. So that's what I'm saying. At this point, now it's time to do something different. And different doesn't feel comfortable. Everybody got off when we started sitting in this, right? When the numbers went down. But see, because different don't feel comfortable. Different is you got to come out your comfort zone now. Now I'm trying to appeal to that thing in you that says that I need to be what I've never been before, or I need to be greater than what they told me I was. See, I was born into a birthright of kings and queens, but I've been acting like, put whatever adjective you want to put there. Right? I was born as a king and queen, but I'm living, paycheck to paycheck. I was born as a king or queen, but I don't ever get with other kings and queens. I was born as a king and queen, but I don't take care of no subjects. For those of y'all that think being a king or queen means you got to be over people, fine. What you doing with your subjects? What's your baby being taught? Salah. Amen. See, it's not comfortable. And I get it. Why even a lot of our people will be the first people to come on here and tell me why I don't know what I'm talking about. Because I'm pressing you, right? I'm using that LA lingo, right? When you get pressed, it don't feel great. When you get pressed, you get defensive. But I'm not pressing you so that I can go ahead. I'm pressing you. When I say, where you from? I'm trying to figure out like what you got in you. Where you from? I'm gonna press you. Where you from? I'm from the United States. No, you bigger than that. Where you from? Right? People don't like that. But at some point, I got to press you. I got to push you. If I love you, sometimes love is an action, right? If I really love you, sometimes I got to press you. Right? I'm not trying to impress you. I'm trying to press you. If part of the pressing comes with the M part where you get impressed, and so be it. But but you're going to have to get pressed a little bit. Where you from? I'm from heaven. Amen, babe. Right? Where you from? I'm from this university. No, you're bigger than that. Where you from? Where you from? You give me your name. You give me, well, I was born from so-and-so. All right. Okay, fine. What they represent? What hood they represent? Like that's what they're doing. Like now, if you answer the question incorrectly, the person might get you off the jump, right? But we should start pressing each other, not pressing each other just for the sake of pressing. I'm trying to press you into making you realize, like, hey, that I need you to be at your greatest. Stop falling for the foolishness. Stop falling for the people that have told you that you ain't no better than, that you're not greater than. Stop falling for the thing that says that all you're going to be is just another person that gets a job, works a 9 to 5, does it for 40 years, retires, lives off a little bit of retirement, is thankful that they can stay in the system and get the little SSI, and then you do the same thing over and over again. Where you from? Where you from? Is that all there is? Right? It's all love, right? Like, where you from? Like, I can't just let you stay where you are, right? Like, I can't force you to come out of where you are. But if you're gonna stay where you are, it ain't gonna be because I ain't press you at all. You know what I'm saying? Even in winning, fine. Where you from? What you winning in? You say you out here winning. What you winning in? What you doing for generational wealth? What you winning in? Where you from? You know what I'm saying? I praise y'all for my wife. That they are getting up at 6 a.m. every rising. It's been kicking my butt a little bit. My back has been hurt, and I did a little too much at the gym on top of what we were doing, so that's why. But even this rising, like when I was trying to go bend down just to wash my hand, I bent over to wash my hand, and now my back is feeling better except for one part. And when I bent over, I was like, I couldn't move down to wash my hands. I couldn't get up, right? But I still pressed because I wanted to make sure, because my wife impressed upon me that we need to do this workout, and then impressed upon us as SOC, we need to get stronger together. And so now following her lead, like even though she wasn't concerned, like she would have let me rest and do whatever, but just her giving that, it presses me into another place. You know what I'm saying? So I was out there, and even though it was hurting a little bit, and I praise God, I wasn't able to be seen because of the dynamic of the camera situation today and the little garage type area that we have. But I was able to hang on there pretty much until the stretching at the end, and then I immediately had to go, had to go lay down to get my body ready for today. And I'm probably going to go lay down again, but it's getting better. I praise y'all. I know the prayers that have been sent and all those great things that y'all been talking and thinking about and stuff like that. But she pressed, it pressed me, and her pressing, saying we're going to do this, it impressed me, right? And the pressing should be done in a manner that impresses, right? She makes me want to be a better man, a better husband, a better father, a better human being, a better Kofi, right? She presses me. You know what I'm saying? She presses me where I'm not trying better spiritually, better emotionally, better psychologically. She presses me, right? She tests me, right? She presses me. She gives me some stuff that are tests. Can you pass this? Can you pass that? And that's love, right? Those that love each other should press each other. See, these people ain't pressing us. The government ain't pressing us. The government is locking us down. People that love you, they press you. They will press you. Where you from? Where you from could be, hey, tell me about Marcus Garvey. You can tell me about all these YouTube people and Mr. Beast and this person and that person. Tell me about Marcus Garvey. You can't do that? Okay, you ain't playing no video game till you tell me about Marcus Garvey. Press. You teach me, tell me what love is. So you can tell me love is an action so powerful that it brings about description. This is description so powerful that it brings about manifestation. Then you don't get to go ahead and go outside like that. Or, hey, you want a video game all day? Press. Go outside and play. Like press. Press can be, hey, you know what? Are you already qualified to be a wife before you get married? People be getting with people that ain't qualified to be husbands and wives, and then try to get married, and then say, "Well, I don't know. I don't understand, man. My husband's not acting right. He wasn't even qualified to be no husband. You supposed to be pre-qualified. She ain't acting like a wife. He who finds a wife, she ain't pre-qualified. People don't like that, but we gonna press. You got to get pressed. That being said, I can hear my little one is up and he seems to be crying a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. It's about time for us to finish anyways. Thank y'all for being on. I appreciate the king and queen in each and every one of you. Even if you're not living inside that kingdom of queendom yet, we appreciate the potential king and queen in each and every one of you. We'll see you guys tonight, Kofi_42 at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time. Those that have Sovereignty 1 and Sovereignty 2, we'll finally get started with that this week, tonight. And don't forget tomorrow, Day of Atonement, 7:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. We're going to come together and we're going to do our Day of Atonement. The ministers, we're going to have around ministerial staff. We're going to have a round table discussion with you guys. And for those of you who have class, just for tomorrow, we will start class. We'll make sure it's recorded as well. We're going to have to move the times around due to the fact that we have the Day of Atonement. So just pay attention on the calendar. There will be updates to the calendar for tomorrow to let you know what time stuff will be. If you can't make it at the new times, we'll make sure that you're on their classes for the week, by the way, or classes that we're doing every week for the next 2 months are as follows. Black History 1 is on Mondays. Sovereignty 1 and Sovereignty 2 are on Tuesdays. Discipleship, Hebrew Characters, and Natural Medicine 1 are on Wednesdays. Biblical Laws on Thursdays. Herbalism 1 is on Fridays. And Solutions from the Black Perspective, as well as Marriage, on Saturdays. So that's the third semester class for this year. If you're interested in classes, get in touch with us. We should have some stuff posted on social media for you guys today with all the information for our Day of Atonement tomorrow. And I'll try to reach out to the ministerial staff that I haven't had a chance to talk to as of yet today. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and check on my fam. So thank you guys again. Appreciate the king and queen, each and every one of you. Please check out my wife, the Honorable Alma, on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree for those that need that extra oomph. Thank you once again to the moderators, ministerial staff, SOC. If you believe what we believe, if you don't, if you agree, if you disagree, if If you're mad, if you're big mad, if you're not mad at all, whatever the case might be, I'm thankful and grateful we could be in front of you one more again. Please study this stuff, meditate on it, fast, pray, do whatever you need to do so that you can be hearers of it and doers as well. Make sure that it's true. But once you find truth in it, right, then it's time for you to make the moves in it, right? That's what we're pressing you to do, is to be the greatest that you can be. And really, that's all out of love. And thank you guys for even pressing me today, because the more you press me, the greater I have to become to be able to deal with the things that we're dealing with. All right, so thank you. We honor you guys. And as always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time, but being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, Yastel, diaspora, anybody Grafton, etc., that you are loved, you are necessary, you are majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.